This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward and our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Now you don't need to register nothing. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit. And then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe we defend criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploiting the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we cannot a stalemate.
You'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man is being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder
happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. Before we even start this repatriation and reintegration process, we've already failed, or are we doomed to fail?
You've got to invest in the institutions that you've established to carry out those sorts of core functions.
We now get into the regional updates to give you an understanding of what's happening across our neighboring islands.
We have available a number of films that are worth showing.
So it was day one when the French Revolution started to develop the concept of universal human rights.
What happened this time is unprecedented. It's one of the largest terrorist attacks in history.
Let's welcome Carl to the program. Carl is over there next to himself. Hello, Carl.
Silky anteater or pygmy anteater, and we have two of the three species of anteaters right here.
WESN.
Hello there, welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. 1 week ago, we spoke to the former president and current council member of the Pharmacy Board of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Andrew Ramon, about a situation that over time has obviously gotten worse, and that is in respect to what seems to be a shortage of pharmaceutical drugs here in TNT. It coincides with the seizure of drugs that, according to authorities, mainly the TTPS, are being sold illegally, are being imported imported illegally. They are either fake or expired. We were able to have that conversation last week, but Mr. Rahman pointed out the need to actually amend the Pharmacy Board Act of TNT, but also for a more robust Chemistry, Food and Drug Division in order to try and solve this issue. So I brought back Mr. Rahman this morning to continue where we left off last week, Wednesday. This time, though, he joins us virtually. Good morning, sir, and welcome back to AM Prime.
Yes, morning.
Well, thanks for joining us once more, Mr. Rahman. Let's continue where we left off last week, where you started, explaining how best it is that we can work around this issue. The first point that you made was the need to actually update the Pharmacy Board Act of TNT. But could you explain to us exactly how amending the Act will actually help to resolve the current circumstances that we find ourselves in?
Right, so the amendment will more be applicable to the Food and Drug Act.
Mm-hmm.
And if we provide, if a more efficient system of registration of drugs is implemented, then people will have an easier time getting their drugs registered. And because these are drugs that are absolutely necessary, and the public clamors for them. They travel. They have, in order for the public to get these drugs right now, they have to jump on a plane and go and get it at Walmart and Walgreens and Target and so on abroad and CVS.
Mm-hmm.
And in this day and age, there's no reason why we should not have it available in pharmacies for the public to be able to access.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I was saying last time, I think I mentioned it on this medium, that at this point, if we have a particular product registered, a particular drug that is already registered, there is an issue with the brand name of the drug. So I do not think there's need for much legislative amendment in relation to something. Being, if it is that the drug is the drug that is being imported, yes, there must be some checks and balances by Food and Drug, Chemistry, Food and Drug Division, to ensure that something authentic is coming into the country. But the way it is enforced at this point is enforced that the brand name of the drug is permitted to be imported, the brand name that was originally registered.
Mm-hmm.
And the legislation uses the word drug. And there's someone who won a case on that where they seized her items and she took them to court and she won that case. As far as I know, dealing with the fact that the drug is registered, but they are only permitting a brand name of that drug to be registered, whereas the legislation says that as long as the drug is registered, it can be imported to Trinidad. And as far as I know, that case was about the fact that she brought in the drug and they had seized it. So it is my approach that the law must be enforced as it is and allow the drug to come in with some monitoring by the Chemistry, Food and Drug Division.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in relation to the registration problem now, there is a mechanism for registration of new drugs through the Minister's appointment of Drug Advisory Committee, which advise, all of this is in the law now, which advises the Minister on the registration of new drugs. One quick off-the-cuff issue is that we have a Chemistry, Food and Drug Department with no pharmacist. A big term in it is Drug, Food and Drug Division, and no pharmacist is employed at that division. That is a division of the Ministry of Health. Secondly, on the Drug Advisory Committee that advises the Minister on the registration of new drugs, there is no, the Pharmacy Council of Trinidad and Tobago has 2 representatives on it. And Pharmaceutical Society had 2 representatives on it from inception. I don't know the present composition, but I know that no member of the council of the Pharmacy Board of Review is on that advisory committee, and no member of the Pharmaceutical Society is on the drug advisory committee. So,
Mr. Rahman, how often, usually speaking, how often does the drug advisory unit actually meet when it comes to the registration of new drugs? Is this something that takes place annually, biannually? How often are they meeting?
No, I think it is closer to monthly.
Okay.
But it is not helping the efficiency in which the registration happens. And then in the actual process of registration, it should not be delayed as much as it is delayed, because our lab, the last I am aware of, our national lab, through the Ministry of Health, does not have the capabilities to test. So if the ministry's drive is towards safety, why don't we have the experience, the expertise, and the equipment to test the drug and the facilities? Admittedly, years gone by, we used to use a lab in Jamaica and a lab in Miami to test these drugs. I am not aware. I think the relationship between those labs and Trinidad, I don't know if it has soured, but I am not aware that they are sending these things to be tested. But at the same time, given the expense to send such a large quantity of drugs to be tested, but there are many applications for registration. We have so many people with their chemistry doctorates in Trinidad that can't find employment. My suggestion has always been to bring a trainer, spend how much ever millions, I don't think it will cost, 3 or 4 million, to get the equipment and the lab setup that we need, so that Trinidad will be testing the drug. Because at this point, application process requires I think it's 4 samples of the drug that is being applied, that somebody has applied to register. And I don't know if they hold it up to the light and say, well, yeah, this looks good. Because I am not aware of medication being sent to any lab to be tested.
Mr. Rahman, let me just clarify very quickly, because I believe that you most likely answered this last week. But pharmacists, they have the registered pharmacists, they have the authority to import drugs into TNT, or is it only through authorized distributors?
It is mainly, I'll tell you the detail of that law, but the practice is, in accordance with the law at this point, that wholesalers are the importer. So wholesalers import, and then wholesalers would sell to the pharmacies for the citizens to get their medication.
Now,
so
also,
the importer is really the wholesaler.
Okay.
The importer is, yes.
Right, so also, what I'm curious to know though is that these pharmaceuticals, at least within the last year, those that have been seized, and this is all part of the conversation, they've still passed the port of entry here in TNT. They've still actually gone through customs and have been approved and authorized to enter TNT.
Yes, for some reason, they get past customs. And they, in getting past customs, so generally speaking, well, as far as I know, it is not pharmacists that are importing them. There are other wholesalers. And many times these wholesalers bring in drugs, pharmaceuticals that is, that the normal distributors I don't know if it's for economic reasons, it became uneconomical to continue to distribute those drugs, to import and distribute. They bring in pharmaceuticals that the normal wholesalers don't bring anymore. So we do have an issue with some scarcity of drugs, in which case the wholesalers, we have a lot of drugs for surgery. There is a particular importer that is kind of specialized in determining what we don't get anymore, and he brings them in. And at this point, he does not have any medication for distribution. So I think even patients lies at risk for certain surgeries because some of the medication that the normal original distributors used to import, they have stopped importing it. And actually I think it's 2 persons I know of that are specialized in importing those things that are required for life-saving surgeries that no longer are imported. Drugs that are required to reverse anesthetic effects. Very, very important drugs that I am inundated with calls from them, of them being prevented at customs. I think it's at customs. And maybe Food and Drug might have a hand in it by not granting the relevant approvals. And they can't get medication that doctors are clamoring for the safety of their patients.
Now, Mr. Rahman, listen, the Pharmacy Board Amendment Regulations 2023 was signed by the Honourable Minister of Health, Terence D'Alsing. So to what extent has this actually made operations a bit more smooth, made the operations of pharmacies a bit more smooth, especially in light of the issues that have been raised?
Well, that didn't have much to do with the registration or the importation. It had to do with a problem with the granting of licenses to pharmacies.
Right.
To be able to be licensed to sell pharmaceuticals to the public. There was a whole furor about that where there was a dispute with the ministry. The ministry had disputed that the then secretary of the pharmacy board was authorized to sign the document for the application for pharmacies, antibiotic, narcotic, and control licenses. And I would have responded to that query, showing why she is still the person to sign these things. And I have never received a response to that. So that caused a delay in the Pharmacy Council being able to issue pharmacy licenses, practicing certificates, and issue the letters for pharmacies to go and get their antibiotic, narcotic, and control licenses from the ministry. So it was resolved long after, but it was caused by a delay that the ministry was querying the authority of the then secretary to sign. When I pointed out why in law, under the Pharmacy Board Act, she is the person to sign by letter back to the ministry, and to be fair, it was back to the minister himself, but he had queried it. I did not get a reply. So the past regulation for pharmacies not to need pharmacy licenses for 2023, and they could have used their 2022 licenses. So it helped by pharmacies being able to continue to operate. But the problem was created by the fact that the ministry was not accepting the person who was the secretary of the council, and erroneously and wrong in law, not accepting that person.
Okay, so Mr. Rahman, I gathered from this conversation that when it comes to pharmacies and not only the importation but also the registration of pharmaceuticals, there seems to be a total mess when it comes to that. which to a great extent has also now led to a shortage of pharmaceutical drugs here in TNT. There's also this issue in respect to the registration of pharmacy licenses or of pharmacist licenses, and please correct me there, if I'm wrong. It's two separate things. But that being said, this is nothing new. I think in 2022 you pointed out that we had a shortage of decongestants, and at that point you were saying it's for multiple reasons, including increased levels of Saharan dust, as well as manufacturers in China purchasing a lot of the raw material that is necessary to produce these drugs. But what has the dialogue been like for those who are actually in authority between the Pharmacy Board as well as the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Health, who ironically is a pharmacist himself? What has the dialogue been between the authorities in trying to resolve these issues? I mean, it's okay, we could have as many television interviews as possible and to highlight these issues, but in terms of actually getting it resolved, where are we with that?
Well, it is not so much at this point, the scarcity has to do with the normal, original wholesalers not importing particular drugs, and persons who would have sourced internationally authentic medication, they are being prevented from importing those medications. So the issue between the Pharmacy Board, and there should be no issue now, the issue between the Pharmacy Board and the Ministry or the Minister is not what is contributing to the present shortage. What is contributing to the present shortage is the inability of the other importers of pharmaceuticals who sought to fill the scarcity created by the normal, original importers not importing plethora of pharmaceuticals anymore. We're not sure for what reason, but it became uneconomical or whatever. And those people used to get to import those items. And now, they are not getting to import the items. So it is an issue of permission from Food and Drug, Chemistry, Food and Drug Division at the Ministry, and working together with Customs in order to determine what is authentic and what is safe to be imported into the country. And those wholesalers have been prevented for the last year or more from getting to import any of the medications that are so important for surgeries and treatment of ailments for the citizens.
I think I understand.
It is the prevention at customs and the seizures at customs. And it has reached a point now where they are losing so much money by importing and can't get it into the country for use by the citizens that they are sitting down waiting until they find a way, until they get to be. So it is really for the Chemistry, Food and Drug Division, not so much, not the Pharmacy Board at all, to work with those importers to assist them to get their medication back into Trinidad, because they have stopped, for the most part, bringing it to Trinidad, because it just gets stuck in customs and will expire. So there needs to be some more collaboration between the Chemistry, Food and Drug Department and the importers, especially the importers of those very important and serious pharmaceuticals that the normal agents have stopped importing, that they were imported, and they were proven to be safe because they were forced to, all doctors and surgeons and anesthetists and so on, use those pharmaceuticals brought in by those other people. In fact, those other people, the C40 purchased medication from them. And now there's an enforcement of something to the point that those same persons who medicate, the government, Ministry of Health, through NIPDEC, before to the department, purchase medication, that individual can get medication into Trinidad.
I think,
And it has to do with the food and drug as far as I know.
Okay, I got you there, Mr. Raman.
Yes.
All right. Mr. Raman, we're going to have to end it there, but thanks for clarifying that point on the last part, you know, in respect to customs, as well as the Chemistry, Food and Drug Administration. Very, very important. So I want to thank you very much for joining us on the program once more, Mr. Raman, and bringing us the level of awareness that's necessary of the situation here in TNT. I do know that many people have question marks surrounding the issues of not being able to get medication that is prescribed to them by doctors or just even OTC, but unfortunately we now know why. Fortunately we know why, unfortunately the circumstances surrounding why. Thank you very much, Mr. Ramon.
Yes, thanks for having me.
All the very best. Ladies and gentlemen, all right, let's take a break here on the program. Again, clarification necessary in trying to deal with this issue, but it really seems to be issues between the Chemistry, Food and Drug Division as well as Customs, because a lot of what is being confiscated, a lot of what has been confiscated actually is being passed through and approved for by Customs, but then they're being seized. So I think there's a lot more to get into in respect to this. There's a lot more details, but let's pause on this for now as we just get on with the program this morning, ladies and gents, because there's a bit more that we have to unpack before we welcome our wild guest later on. We'll be right back after this.
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
Sure, no problem.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really.
I'm not seeing anyone.
Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Yeah,
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today. The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk
group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Coming soon to WESN.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me. Respond to me. How you would respond to me?
The first question I'd ask is why.
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren. Coming soon to WESN.
Thank you very much for being with us this morning, ladies and gentlemen. My next guest has filed his papers as he campaigns for the post of Policy and Strategy Officer in the upcoming United National Congress National Executive Elections. He's also filed nomination papers to contest the seat for Couva North to be the representative on behalf of the United National Congress in the campaign for 2025 for Couva North. Senior at Law Kyle Taklalsing joins us this morning on AM Prime. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program.
Good morning to you and good morning to your viewers and listeners.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Mr. Taklalsing. I'm going to start by asking you simply, I've asked people on both sides of the coin, whether it be Teamster or United Patriots, exactly what it is that they are offering, what it is that they promise to bring differently to the table, what is it that they are planning as something new and refreshing or something that is needed for the United National Congress and for politics as a whole here in TNT. And that's the same I'm going to ask you. Up to now, I haven't gotten a clear response, a clear answer from anyone. I'm wondering if you can tell me this morning, what are your plans that are different to what we are currently accustomed to here in TNT?
Well, firstly, in relation to my nomination for the party executive as Policy and Strategy Officer, I think that I bring a wealth of experience in relation to law and advising on legislative policy and other types of executive policy. I've been a lawyer now for 15 years. I've done several high-profile litigation cases treating with legislation, judicial review, constitutional rights. And when one looks at the role of the Policy and Strategy Officer, one of the core functions of that post is to advise the NATEX and to advise the party essentially on legislative policy. I see the role of that officer as getting into the membership, taking their views, consulting, deciding or getting from them, extrapolating from them, if you will, what are the needs of our membership, which also reflect the needs of the wider society, and making policy and strategy recommendations to the NATEX, which the United National Congress can then take to form part of its policy as a party to sell to the population or to bring to the population to eventually be elected into office. So in short, to answer your question, I think that I can essentially fulfill my role as a policy and strategy officer to bridge that gap between the population, between our membership, between the ground, as the activists like to say, and the leadership of the party and essentially the leadership of the country to assist in policy making that can make actual changes and benefits to the lives of ordinary people or people in our country. I hope that isn't too much of a convoluted answer for you.
No, I'm curious to know, based on what you said, whether or not, in your opinion, you believe that the incumbent has failed to do exactly what it is that you're pointing out.
I think that there have been some shortcomings. I'll put it like that. I think, it reflects, put it like this. The barometer for success of any political party is essentially success at an election. The United National Congress, I think, is a very strong party meaning that its membership, the personnel, a lot of the talent within that resides within the party, very strong. But for some reason, we are unable to win elections. And I think that falls squarely on the leadership of the party, the NATEX, which we are in a NATEX election. I think that as a leader and anybody in leadership positions, you have to take responsibility for the success of your organization. If you aren't doing that, then you aren't leading. And I think we have to hold our leaders responsible when things don't go right, and we give them praises when things go right. Leaders are often the first, unfortunately or fortunately, to take credit when things go right. So when things go wrong, we have to put the blame at their feet. And it's not necessarily about blame, but it's about responsibility. And I think that I am offering myself to the membership to say, look, I think that I can do things differently. I bring with me certain expertise, I bring with me certain talent, and I want to give the membership that in order to make a difference for our party to get into government, to effect the policies that our party believes in.
Now, Mr. Saklal Singh, okay, fair enough, but it's a bit contradictory what you're saying to me. You know, you're saying that you believe that the party is strong. However, for some reason, it's failed to win elections. A strong party, unfortunately, would not have seen as many failures as the United National Congress has seen. So that being said, exactly what is it now that the United National Congress needs if you already believe it's a strong party?
I don't think that, well, there's a distinction there to be made. The party, its membership, and the talent in the party is very strong. I think there are a lot of strong persons in the party. I think that the leadership of the party is weak. And I think that the leadership is responsible for the electoral or the lack of electoral success. If you could have all the talent in the world, whether it be a sport team, whether it be any type of organization, but if the leadership is not harnessing that talent and bringing it forward and ensuring that you take the right decisions in order to achieve whatever your goals are, then the party would suffer. But that isn't necessarily an indictment on the party.
Mm-hmm. Now,
so there's a distinction I'm drawing between the NATEX, the leadership, and the general membership of the party. I think our founding philosophies in the party are very strong. We're a party that believes in the rule of law. We're a party that believes in independent democratic institutions and all of these things. Those are the underlying core philosophies, which I think are very strong in our party and strong in our membership. Unfortunately, I think that the current leadership in the NATEX has not brought that forward in a way that allows us to win an election for a significant period of time.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that, again, I'm asking purely on your opinion because you are contesting under a state of which the current political leader has not supported. Do you still support the current opposition leader? I mean, given everything that you said this morning, is your support still with Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar?
She is currently the duly elected political leader of the party, and as such, she enjoys my support as a member of the party. Until she is either replaced or she steps down as the duly elected political leader, she will enjoy my support. That is the way that a party and an organization works. Especially a political
Mr.
party.
Saklal Singh, you know, that's the politically correct answer, but I'm asking your opinion in respect to her as a leader and her leadership skills. If you believe that NATEX and the current leadership of the party is weak, does that suggest that you are not in favor of Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar leading the party?
I think, no, I'll be very direct with you. I think that there are shortcomings. Ms. Persad-Bissessar did well between the period of 2010 to 2015. I think she served her purpose. I think that unfortunately, being the head of the organization, she has some responsibility to bear for the electoral defeats that the United National Congress has suffered over the past 10 years. And therefore, in that regard, as with any leader, if you aren't being successful, then you have criticism to face. And I am, yes, and I can be critical, or I am critical, and I say that as the leader, you have a responsibility to take. But while we are in the current formation or configuration of the party, meaning that what we have now is a NATEX election, the leadership question, the ultimate leadership question, which is the political leader, does not arise at this time. But that is not to run from the question. I'm not running from the question at all. I'm saying yes, I level criticism on her leadership, certainly. But that doesn't mean that she doesn't enjoy my support. She is the leader of the party at this point. If, for instance, we form a NATEX, and she says to me, Mr. Taklal Singh, as the new policy and strategy officer, I need you to devise policy and strategy on stand your ground, and I want to have funding, then I have to do it, and I will serve in my role and support her in that regard. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I think that everything is okay with her leadership. That would be far from the truth.
All right, I want to move forward now again in respect to your candidacy, and I want to give the opportunity to speak now to the fact that, listen, you would be considered one of the young leaders. You would be considered one of the youth leaders here in TNT. A lot has happened throughout the years which seems to have alienated young people from politics here in TNT. It doesn't matter what political side they may be on, but there has been a lot over the last number of years that really has alienated young people from politics, many of them choosing not to even participate in the electoral process, many of them even choosing to leave TNT, which is part of the problem as well, of course. But that being said, as a young individual, how would you appeal to others here in TNT? I mean, how will you reach out to them and say, listen, all hope is not necessarily lost?
I want to be very honest with you. Well, first of all, I do acknowledge that there is a disconnect between the younger voter and our politics. There is alienation. I've seen that. And I want to be very honest with you. I'm trying to figure that out because for myself, I attended Queen's Royal College. I was always involved in any political debate at college at sixth form. I grew up in the era of Mr. Pandey and Mr. Manning. I would anxiously follow the Parliament channel. So for myself, I was always very interested in the political debate and discussions that were happening. So I find it difficult to understand why young people now are not as engaged as I am. But I have been speaking to a lot of young people. I was actually confronted by two young supporters of the party. They're members of the party recently. And they said, look, you all need to stop this personal attack politics on the platform. We actually give us more credit. We actually want to hear not just these sound bites, but get into the details of the policy. So for instance, and they told me, they said, for instance, you're talking about stand your ground and castle doctrine. What do you mean by that? Exactly what do you mean by stand your ground? Am I just going to stand my ground in front of an intruder in my house? And I had to say, well, no. What you have currently is the law, and there is self-defense law. And unfortunately, or fortunately, the self-defense law needs some adjusting to ensure that a homeowner can defend himself without having to think about whether he would be charged for defending himself because he used excessive force. And then you start a conversation. So I think what happens, and that's just an example, my understanding so far, and I'm learning and I'm listening to young people, is that they actually want to be engaged in a meaningful way. There is a shift in the political landscape. It's not about song. They want a policy. To put it simply, and this is the phrase that was used to me, they want a party of policy, not pick-on. They enjoy the pick-on, I'm sure, but they want a party of policy and not pick-on. They want to hear the plans. They have very real concerns. For instance, one of the big things that I think political platforms miss, right, for the young person between the age of, let's say, 30 and 40, they are not hearing any party talk about mortgage interest rates. They're hearing about crime, they hear about poverty, they hear about work and jobs, and they say, well, look, we have jobs, but we have to still live by our parents, and we have to go by our aunt or rent, because the price of a house now, and when you go to a mortgage and you get the interest rate, I can't afford the monthly payments. And so how are you going to treat with the housing stock? And how are we going to send down mortgage interest rates and the price of real estate in our country in order for us to afford a mortgage, because we want to own a home too? And I was like, wow, that is actually a very serious concern for young people. They actually want to hear. So I think, to answer the question, not to get into all the issues that confront a national society, is that we have to engage them a bit more You have to actually be genuine with them and don't do these sound bites. Get into what their concerns are and try to get back to them, because they punish you, you know. If you say you're going to do something to young voters or you're going to speak to them and you don't engage them, they remember. And then they dismiss you very quickly, almost as fast as flicking through TikTok. They just flick past you. So you really have to be genuine with them, get into what bothers them, what their concerns are, and get your policy to them and solutions. So it's really, or the responsibility is on me or young leaders to know that and to get into the process with the young voter and understand the issues and really bring the policy that you want.
Mm-hmm. So
I hope that answers the question.
But then it leads me to my question as to whether or not, in your opinion, again, that currently, I mean, what we've grown accustomed to is seasoned politicians, I like to put it that way, politicians who have argued, you know, we've been a member of parliament for so many odd years, it may even be decades. Do you think that in itself has really led to a disconnect between the population and what offerings they currently have? I mean, even the national executive, the current national executive of the United National Congress, with them, their CV might be quite long and the years of experience might add up. Do you think that is an issue?
I mean, you know, let's also be fair. The mere fact that you've served a lot of time in a political office, let's call it generally like that, a political office, doesn't necessarily disqualify you from understanding what are the needs and issues. I do think that individuals who have served a long period of time, they have to be careful, because you could get into a rut, you could get into a habit where you simply, you know, do the usual, you do the bare minimum, you come back for an election, you win, you lose, but you continue.
And so is that what's happened then? Is that what has happened then?
I think to some extent, yes, in our current NATEX, and that is borne out by the results in the most recent local government election. You had a dropping of the amount of overall participation in the voter turnout in all elections. And I think when the analysis is done, my feeling of it, I don't have the exact statistic, but my feeling of it, let's call it a subjective analysis, is that young people aren't voting, they aren't participating in the political discourse, they aren't engaging policy, and they aren't engaging their leaders to say what they want, because I think to a large extent, a lot of them have given up on whether they think they could actually make positive change or not. So yes, I do think the current NATEX has fallen short there. And it is a direct result. I think that the United National Congress, the youth arm of the party, needs to function a bit better. I think it needs to do a little more outreach. Recently, I was involved in the National Constitutional Committee was having consultation for constitutional reform nationally, and the United National Congress unfortunately was not represented at that consultation. I was asked by the Youth League of Trinidad to assist in you know, allowing the young participants to understand the constitutional issues as a lawyer. So I bridged the gap between the committee and the young people. I was able to explain what were the proposed constitutional measures, explain to them in a way that they could understand, and then take their recommendations and sort of translate it into a way that the experts could understand, look, this is what we want, and this is maybe the legislative framework that we could look at in an amendment. And, you know, the United National Congress, I didn't see them represented, and that is really something, and I think a role of NATEX. NATEX should have said, look, this is a national process. Whether you're taking a position that the committee is a distraction, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't participate and put your view in, and especially have the young people put their view in.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Taklal Singh, we've actually reached the end of this particular conversation. But thank you very much for making the time to join us on AM Prime this morning, and all the very best to you in your campaign ahead. Of course, we would reach out for a follow-up discussion following the June 15th polls. But thank you very much for your time, sir.
Anytime. Thank you very much, and good morning to you and your listeners again.
All the best. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break here on AM Prime on return. If you think the conversations have been wild thus far, it's about to get a whole lot crazier when we welcome Ricardo Mead. We'll be right back.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Sarah Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Court of Appeal delivers unanimous ruling on Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Act. Chaguanas Main Road on fire as police crack down on illegal vending. Diego Martin murder pushes homicide toll to 236. Tourist reports hotel room break-in and theft in Tobago. Office of the Prime Minister confirms public holiday long weekend. Now for the details. The Court of Appeal has ruled unanimously that the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Act is valid and constitutional. According to the judgment delivered this afternoon, the Act, which establishes the Revenue Authority, does not breach the constitutional rights of public officers. Finance and Economy Minister Colum Imbud has responded to the judgment by posting on his X platform account, quote, "We can now move swiftly to improve and maximize revenue collection for the benefit of all citizens." A police exercise cracking down on illegal vending in Chaguanas this afternoon has triggered a fire resistance with a huge inferno lit on the main road near the market. Traffic was diverted as the road was impassable. Fire tenders were summoned to put out the blaze and clear the debris. A man was gunned down in Diego Martin on Tuesday afternoon, pushing the homicide toll to 236. The man sustained gunshot wounds to his head and body. Reports are that around 12:15 p.m., several gunshots were heard near a bar located opposite an unemployment relief program office off the Diego Martin Main Road. Officers from the West End Police Station responded and Region 1 Homicide Bureau and Crime Scene Unit processed the scene. Tobago police are investigating two reports of break-ins on the island. In the first incident, PC Jack is investigating a report of a break-in at an apartment at the Tropicist Hotel. Police report that around 8:30 p.m. on Saturday, a 49-year-old man from Orlando, Florida, who was occupying one of the rooms, secured his apartment and went away. Upon returning around 11 p.m., he observed that several items, including jewelry valued at $500 US, shaving sets, and cologne were missing. The police were notified. The other report was of a break-in over the weekend at the Buko Early Childhood Center, where $11,000 in cash was stolen from the school. Friday, May 31st is officially being recognized as a public holiday. The Office of the Prime Minister Communications today confirmed that in accordance with the provisions of Section 3(2) of the Public Holidays and Festivals Act, Chapter 19(5), the public is hereby notified that Friday, May 31st, 2024 will be recognized as a public holiday in TNT. This is due to the celebration of both Corpus Christi and Indian Arrival Day public holidays on Thursday, May 30th. Well, that's it to News on the Hour on WESN. I am Sarah Ali. Thank you for watching.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the home store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Chaguanas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop Ariapita Avenue Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the game.
no.
Let's go to the last part.
You know, there's some that might say it's a jungle out there. Well, it's always a jungle in here on a Wednesday. Please help me welcome Ricardo Mead of the El Socorro Center for Wildlife Conservation here on AM Prime. It's Wild Wednesday. Hello, Ricardo.
Hola, mi amigo. ¿Cómo está usted?
Yep, he should. How did he? Muy bien. ¿Y tú?
Sí. ¿Qué pasa?
Yes, let's get to the animals. I did Spanish in university, and I think that's probably all I remember.
Lo siento mucho, señor. Lo siento mucho.
Exactly.
But anyway, it's Wednesday, lunes, martes, miércoles, Wild Wednesday. You don't have to learn to say Wild Wednesday in Spanish, you know.
You're going to have to learn to say. You're probably going to have to teach me as well.
Right. But we're back. We're back from our Central American trip.
How was your Central American trip?
Amazing. My mind is blown, my head is spinning, so many things I want to do. I just want to change the whole world, that kind of thing, when you're so inspired and, you know, revved up by experiences. And that's what that trip was about, learning and experiences. So we're back here, and it's a great point in the life of the center that we're going through a transition. So now that you're already changing, you can employ the strategies, techniques, and processes that you'd have learned to be better. And that's always us striving, to be better. November is going to be 19 years. Next year is going to be the big 2-0. So we want that to be just amazing. And we're hoping in September to really open the new center and get the wildlife hospital 100% functional. So it's a lot, you know, we're setting that hat, hanging it high, but we're going for it. We're going for it all the way. Right? But we continue our programs, and we're back here.
I'm glad to have you back. Last week you pulled a fast one there, though.
What?
Because I was planning to not have I was planning to have a recorded episode of Wild Wednesday, and then at 7 o'clock, got a knock on the door. Oh, Ricardo sent me. And that was Michaela with Pre-Sal.
Okay. I guess they would have called, but because we're out of the country, they would not have gotten us. And they didn't call WhatsApp. You call WhatsApp, you got us. Most of the times.
But that was okay, man. It was a good surprise. I think you've also brought some young ones with you this morning.
Well, it's baby season. That's something people need to understand. It's baby season.
It's
baby season. I mean, with our tropical environment, throughout the year, we are susceptible, liable to have babies come in. But there's a particular period right around now when you will get the most amount of babies. So every day we're getting calls. And sadly, we've gotten about, since I've been back on Saturday morning to now, I've gotten about 9 calls about manicures. Only 2 sets were able to be saved. Dog or roadside fatality with the mother, and she had the babies in her pouch. But the babies, when they're really tiny, like almost like neonates, we can't do much with them. They can't be fed. You try to feed them in the tube, and the tube just destroys their GI system. But we were able to save 2 sets, and hopefully we will get them to a significant size where they can be released. The others had to be put to sleep, sadly. But this happens. So we encourage people, you feed your dog, and 6 o'clock the dog has not eaten, don't leave food in the bowl, please. It's for your dog's safety, because that food could encourage the crapo.
Yeah, frogs seem to like dog food a lot, boy.
But it's protein. It's protein, so it's like a lot of insects rolled up in a little ball. So they've learned how to utilize that. So for your dog's safety and the other animal safety, remove the food, keep it in your house, in your kitchen counter, and you can reintroduce it in the morning. Don't leave it overnight. You don't know what's going to come around. And so your safety, the animal safety, just remove the food. So manicures go after the food, and a lot of times the dogs kill the mother. And one case so far, she had 11 babies in a pouch. Heartbreaking to see that you had to put those 11 babies to sleep because there was no way to save them.
I don't even want to know how or why, but you're right. It's all part of reality. It's responsibilities that we can also
there are things
practice.
that we can do to make a difference. Simple things. Just imagine, 6 o'clock you tell Johnny, go pick up the dog bowl, and we'll put it out in the morning when we get up. That way now the manicure doesn't come, she doesn't get killed, her 11 babies get saved. Simple as that. But we got some guys here today.
I see that, and I think they're kind of itching to come out.
Right, so I'm going to take them out of the container so you can see them better. Quite common. But you know what happens in Trinidad and Tobago? We take things that we see all the time for granted. These are kiskiddies. Great kiskiddies, the big guys.
The big kiskiddies?
Yes, that you know makes the sound that goes, kiskiddy, kiskiddy. So these are babies that we've had them in our possession now for almost 2 weeks.
Okay.
The nest had to be removed from an industrial area. So the mother made, the parents made the nest in a bad area. And before they were damaged, they communicated with us. And we got our volunteers to go there, and they used a man lift, and they went up, and they removed these babies from the nest. And now, without being able to place them back, we had to take care of them, which we don't really like to do. We like to get the mother and father to do it because, one, it's cheaper, it's easier, and it's all around just better. But we couldn't put the nest back anywhere near the compound. So we had to basically bring them with us and feed and take care of them. So they've grown considerably in that time, and now we have them here at the point where they are feeding. So we have the food that they sort of grew up with there before. We have this here. This is the hand-rearing formula for baby birds. And now, today, they've now been introduced to, what do the early birds get?
Early bird gets the worm.
Right, so these birds are up quite early for AM Prime, so they are going to get, you guys ready for this? Who wants that? They get the worm. That's how it goes. They get the worm. So we have to do this several times a day. This is what I try to get people to understand. It's not straightforward, cut and dry, easy. This little fast one here. Where do you want to go, buddy? All right, you want to try that? There we go. See, he's starting to walk. Next one's starting to eat. That's how it goes. All different personalities, behaviors. You're going to try it now? You're going to try it now? This one is busy. This one here, see, he's backing up and sticking around. He's going to poop. Here we go. Poop.
Go for it.
Did he make it?
No, not as yet.
Not as yet? He's trying. Oh my God.
He's probably camera shy.
Right? Yeah. That was just a fake out. But that's what they do. That's an amazing thing. So we like to keep them in a nest. So there's a plastic container lined with toilet paper, bathroom tissue, and napkin inside. So that recreates the nest. They custom cuddle together in that little nest up in these cavities. And to keep a clean area, they would wiggle their butts towards the entrance and poop outside.
So they're born with basically
these skills, yeah.
Wow.
They're born with these skills. So that way, they're not stomping around and poop all day and getting themselves sick. So Mother Nature, we always say, has a way of doing things, hey, you dropped that one, buddy. Come on. You try it again? He's probably begging for his formula now. Like, these worms are nice, but it's not warm like my formula. What about you? Here we go.
Look at that. Tasty, isn't it?
Right, so let's imagine doing this.
Ricardo, have you had your protein shake for the morning?
Well, I have a lot of these. That's why I have my hair so full. I have to cut my hair several times a week. People really don't believe that. But these worms are delicious. And you can tell, here, show them how delicious that is. You want to try that one? What about you? All right, so they have gone from being just about nude or bald, and they're feathering up quite nicely. And the worms are important because the worms has keratin in it. The keratin is the stuff that gives us our luxurious hair, our beards, our fingernails, and so on there. So that's very important for the birds. So we try to show people it takes a lot to raise a bird. But we're not just going to raise them. Right now they're friendly. By next week, they're starting the separation process.
From each other?
Not from each other, from us.
Oh, okay.
From us. And that's important because we do not want them to become imprinted. So a lot of people have saved kiskadis and other birds and so on, but they always stick around and want to be around people and to be held and stuff like that, which is not good. Because how are you going to put it back in the wild when it's going to go towards people and their pets and so on, even their vehicles? They can possibly die.
But you're doing something and you're saying something which we've been taught growing up is wrong. Do not ever touch a baby bird.
All right.
Do not ever touch a baby bird, because then you may see it on the ground, you may see it outside of the nest. Don't touch a baby bird, because once you do, you transfer your scent to the bird and the parents will then reject it.
Well, that couldn't be furthest from the truth.
Okay, so
it's really, really
breaking that
inaccurate.
myth.
Yeah, breaking that myth. Yes, you can hold them. Most of the times, here we go, here's the poop, he's going to do the poop, he's going to do the poop. We got it. We got that poop right there. Yeah, you know when they're going to do what they're going to do, right? So, firstly, 99.9% of birds can't smell. So that is not a factor. So you get the smell on the bird. The mother bird isn't going by smell. See that?
Sound.
Hearing, sound. They call, okay? And if they could smell, they can't smell for miles and all sorts of that, but they can hear, right? That's why they make the sound. So it's about the sound, it's about the look, and other physical characteristics that the mother can pick up, not the smell. Most birds just cannot smell, okay? Why we tell people do not pick up baby birds, many times when they pick up baby birds, they're actually kidnapping them. The birds literally jump out or kicked out of the nest, and then they begin to learn how to fly and forage and follow the parents.
So they're forced?
You're forced. You have to. You can't learn to fly in the nest. It's just too small. So you got to get out there, get down on the ground. And sometimes now, they will fly around for a while, flop around for a while, and they need to rest. They're babies. They're now doing this. Their muscles haven't been used yet. So they would be there, and they call, hey, there's a baby bird sitting on the ground. And I say, okay, don't touch it, send me a picture. And that's what I love about the technology now. With that, then now I can see, okay, the tail is mid-short. It's not fully grown out yet, so it's a fledgling. So it's not fully capable of good, long, sustained flight, but it should not be put back in a nest or held by people. What you try to do is separate it from animals. So if you have cats and so on, keep them away. Dogs, keep them away. Keep them inside. But if you leave it alone, you'll observe mom and dad will come back around. The baby will call. They will come with a worm, a mouthful of worms, and feed them. And then the bird will fly after them for a little bit, go in a little tree and so on. And that will go on for about 4 or 5 days, up to a week. And then before you know it, they fly off and they're gone. But that is the fledgling stage. So they have to go through that stage.
And they're most vulnerable at that stage.
They're very vulnerable because now they've, without our threats, and when I say our threats, vehicles, our children, dogs and cats, that's the top 4 bird killers right there. Those are our threats. You remove humans, those 4 threats are gone. The most they would have to face now is a predator. And they're usually safe on the ground from most predators. Then you might have a big lizard or something like that, a mat, which is a golden tegu. But for the most part, they're safe and they know how to hide. So it's all in their nature. But humans, with our eyes and ability to hear them and see them, find them and say, look, this baby bird needs help. Most of the times they do not need help. They need you to leave them alone so they can go about their natural processes of fledging and then becoming an independent flying bird.
Are Kiskadee parents good parents? And I say that because...
Amazing.
Because, no, I ask that question is because I've heard stories, again, growing up. You see what they teach you growing up. Sometimes it's not always accurate. The example just given by Ricardo is touching birds. And they say you should never touch a baby bird because your scent is transferred to the bird. Parents don't reject it. But I guess there's always some tales behind that, as you said, because people are kidnapping these birds, for want of a better way of putting it. But I ask you that is because also I've heard growing up is... yeah, don't worry. You're good. You're not going anywhere for now. But it's that Kiskadee parents tend to lay their eggs in other birds' nests.
Well, that's not the Kiskadee. That's there are birds that does that. One bird that does that is the shiny cowbird. All right, so it will go and lay. And so sometimes you see this big brown bird being fed by a smaller bird.
Yeah.
And that's the case. They would lay it in a house wren's nest. And as far as you're concerned, you hatched, you're my baby. Okay, so it has nothing to do with the species, right? I'm feeding my baby that I've been sitting on and so on there. So yeah, the shiny cowbirds, there are quite a few birds across the spectrum of birds throughout the world that actually do that. Lay in other birds'
But
nests
not the
and allow
Kiskadee.
them. Not the Kiskadee. Kiskadee is not one to do that. There may be some fight sometimes for nests, but the Kiskadees are great parents. In fact, we had somebody basically kidnap a fledgling, brought it to us because they didn't even communicate with us. They're just like, I found this bird on me. I know you are, so I brought it. We looked at the bird and determined, asked the question, said, the dogs and cats in the yard? No. Take the bird back. No, who's going to take care of it? I said, take it back, keep it inside tonight, get up at 5:30 in the morning, put the box outside your window. 6 o'clock, I get a call. Oh my God, the mother came and she was feeding them and then the baby took off with her. I said, thank you, you did well. This is what should have been done from the start. So we handled the bird, she handled the bird. It went from one part of the country to the next. It went back and mom still came back in the morning, heard the call and took care of her babies. That is how amazing these birds are as parents. And animals on the whole, amazing as parents. They figure out the way. Even the bird that lays its eggs in another bird's nest, figure out, you know what? You will feed them better than me. And took advantage of that sort of, biological aspect of it. So they always look out for their babies.
But they're also aggressive birds.
Territorial. Everybody's territorial. Every bird is territorial. Have you ever seen the peaceful loving doves fluttering and fighting at each other on the ground almost like roosters?
Yep.
Yeah. The males going after each other because, hey, this is my area and these are my girls and you're intruding. Every animal must establish their territory and their dominance in order to propagate and carry on their species. It is only in the humans that the strongest don't always survive. In wild, it's the strongest and survival of the fittest. So if there are 50 fish swimming, the shark is going to get the last slow swimming one. The strongest in the front is going to evade and avoid capture. Same thing in the yard. The chicken, the big rooster, is always the last to get caught because he knows the ups and downs how to get away. You'll catch the hen, you'll catch the young poulet, you'll catch all. The big guy is the last one. That's why he's always such a prize when you get him.
Usually speaking, how many eggs are laid by Kiskadee? Is it always 2?
2 or 3. You usually get 2 offspring.
And usually, do both make it to adulthood?
Yes. That's a testimony to the kind of parenting.
That's incredible. Yeah.
They usually do make it out of the nest, and then the chances with other issues coming. But both of them usually make it out of the nest. Most of the times you go and have to pull a nest or a nest falls down, you get the 2 inside of there. So they do really, really great parenting, taking care of their babies. They're coloring up, they're feathering up, they're starting to look great, and we are excited. All right, this one is making a lot of noise for food, but he's not eating the food as readily as the other one. He's like, I'm only talking food. But the other one is serious. He's like, you talk. Oh, yeah, here's the Kiskadee. He's practicing that already. Okay, and they'll also practice grabbing the worm sometimes and flipping their head because when they catch sometimes, they don't even eat a small snake,
Yeah, small snakes, small lizards, yeah.
Oh, there we go. So it's just, for me, this is the most enjoyable phase. I'm glad I wouldn't have to be mixing any formula for the rest of the day. Today, you guys are going to be chomping down your worms all the way. Look at that, and just hungrily, greedily, just going at it.
They seem to be enjoying that.
Yeah.
And then, it's the first day that they're on these worms, eh?
Today is the first day that they're on the worms. Okay. Not all our volunteers have access, and when they're small, they will not go for the worms. So when they come back to us, that's when, because we have the breeding colonies of worms, that's when we start them on it.
So my director is asking whether or not what's the color of the eggs, the eggshells.
Kiskadee eggs has a off-white, bluish, slightly bluish color to it. If they're really blue, then that means they're most likely bare-eye thrush. So there's a lot of nests that look similar. Unless you see the bird going in, you see the nest, we have to try to identify the eggs that way. So there's a light blue tinge in it, but it's mainly white. Most of them are more white, but there's a slight bluish tinge to it. But generally, I would say white. That will generally be it. You'd have to really look to see that bluish tinge. That's as you really identify one from the next kind of thing. So they're almost, you see that fuzzy stuff on them, that's a down.
Yeah.
That they're born with. So that is going, and the true feathers are coming in. And these worms are here just in time to help them develop those feathers, because it takes a lot of energy, a lot of nutrients for them to push out those feathers. Feathers take up a lot, and they're very important for the birds, but they take up a lot of their energy in terms of growing. It's like humans with calcium and stuff like that there. You need a lot of that there to grow your height and stuff like that. You want one? You want one? So these are, while they're common birds, we need to appreciate them for what they do. They're mainly insectivores.
So they will control the insect population around?
Correct. I love to see them dive down on the ground, grab a grasshopper, get back on the branch, and they'll whip their head side to side to knock him out. Because remember, those grasshoppers kicking big legs can scratch their eyes and so on. And then they just literally chomp them down. Grasshoppers, locusts, crickets, mole crickets, other worms, caterpillars. So things like these, farmers and regular folks who have your little garden should appreciate. There is hardly anything negative other than pooping on your car or nesting in your gallery. The posts go up, but not all the way to the ceiling, and there's that lovely cavity there. They love to build nests there. What I would suggest that it's either one, you just leave it alone and appreciate the fact that an animal has found solace and sanctuary in your home to the point where it's willing to build a nest and bring up its young. Get your little ladder, your step ladder or stool, and go up there and take your little pictures. Take pictures of the nest building, the egg laying. Check how many days for the eggs to hatch. See what the babies look like. Enjoy those moments. You don't have to wait for David Attenborough to come to Trinidad to do that and then put it on TV for you to see it. We are fortunate you've seen that live in your home or in your backyard or even in a flower pot. Appreciate it. Show the children, show the neighbors. Post that on social media instead of all the negative things that we do sometimes that just bog us down. Let us have faith and confidence of being Trinis and some of the nice things about living in a country that is a tropical paradise.
It is a paradise, isn't it?
Watch now.
Very
we
much
live
so.
where they want to vacation.
Yep.
Even on our trip to Central America, people were fascinated. You guys from Trinidad and Tobago, and you have this and you have that.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing thing to live in.
I think recently I was watching one of those documentaries that you spoke of. It's called Wild Caribbean. And 90% of the documentary focused on our diversity, our ecology, our biodiversity. It focused so much on just TNT. So that in itself just tells you.
Yeah, and we just celebrated, was it yesterday, day before? Well, I did the presentation yesterday for World, it was Biological Biodiversity Day. And Trinidad ranks high on the list of diverse countries, biodiverse countries. For this small island, we have 700 species of butterflies, close to 500 species of birds.
Wow.
Most Caribbean islands have 1 or 2 species of snakes. We have 49. Yeah, I don't want to hear it, Yes, you can go to Barbados if you want with your 1 or 2 snakes, so you wouldn't see them, but you wouldn't get to see the other wonderful things that we have here. Appreciate what we have.
I was so happy that on this program we've been able to see a lot of those snakes. I'm still fascinated by the tigre.
Oh yeah.
That to me, that's my favorite thing that I've seen thus far. The green anaconda comes in second. But the tigre was wow. was wow.
Yeah, we have.
Let's not speak about snakes in front of the young ones.
These guys are, they have this kind of look. What are you guys talking about? They have this sort of look. So this is what people understand. This is going to go on all day long.
Really, you're going to have to be doing this all day long?
Here, like literally every 15, 20 minutes. If I get enough worms into them, I might get half an hour. But they're going to start up again. And I have to stop whatever I'm doing and go feed them. So I used to set, we used to set the a little alarm, a little timer. You don't need that. They'll let you know when they're hungry.
Yeah, they're doing that right now.
They will let you know when they're hungry. Okay, you stop feeding them, and if you're taking too long, they will pipe up, they will make their noise, and you will do what you have to do. So because we have a crazy day at the center, these guys came with me, and I decided to bring them on the show, because this is part of the process. People think it's just, love them up, kiss them up. None of that. From coming closer to the end of this week, we will actually begin employing the mask, and maybe as early as tomorrow, the mask to feed them.
Yeah.
So that this doesn't mean parent to them. And they will adjust quickly. You give them a chance, their instincts kick in, and they do what they have to do.
I think he's got itis. He's falling asleep there.
Yeah, well, that's what you hope. But like I said, 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, it's like, okay, I had a power nap, I'm ready for food again. And it goes. So we have to breed and produce literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of these worms.
Continuous worms, yeah.
The whole thing is worms.
Whoa.
Lovely mealworms. And they do taste great. You want to try a few?
I don't want to try a few. I just want to take a wow.
Well, come on, pop one. I pop
You
one,
go-
you pop
go
one.
for it.
If
Go
I
for it.
pop one, you pop one?
Go for it.
If I pop one, you pop one?
I'm not promising that, but I just want to see you go for it.
We want surety here. We
No,
don't want
I
that-
can't give you
We
surety,
don't want
man.
that political stuff. That, well, maybe when I get in, I will try.
Which is why I'm being an honest politician and saying, I ain't giving you surety.
Well, good luck being an honest politician.
It's true. Good luck being an honest politician.
No, it can happen. It can happen. It can happen, and it will happen. There will be a time when there will be less focus on the people around you and what you do. And I look forward to such a time. What you do as a person. Okay, that's going to be really, really lovely. Not depending on your color or anything like that. And well, like I tell you, they just, when you think they're done, just show them a worm.
Do you want that?
And they go at it again. Look at that. Yeah. And by early next week, they're going to be. We're just going to put them in a bowl with some dirt and some leaves, and they will find them and start to dig and search. And it's a whole process. We have to duplicate what their parents do.
Yeah, it really is amazing if you, as what you're saying as Kiskili parents, full time, every day, full time.
Yeah, all the time flying around. So imagine now in baby season, which is now, the parents are not just feeding themselves. They have to feed 2 more beings.
So they've got to do what? It's 2 more mouths to feed.
Yeah.
And they eat a lot. They've got to do at least 3 times the amount of hunting that they've.
Correct. So look how many insects they will remove from your yard. So instead of trying to hurt them, hunt them, shoot them with pellet guns, we've got so many shots with pellet guns. Why? Why are you shooting this little bird? What are you going to do? You're just destroying something that is helping you. And this is why we always come on the show to try to teach people something new, a new aspect. Even the simplest things around make a difference. For example, most people don't know that hummingbirds eat insects.
I didn't know that.
Right?
Yeah.
Even they help out with the little flies, mosquitoes, gnats, and so everything. Mother Nature has a balance in it. It's us who do not seem to have true genetic memory have to try and figure things out. And in figuring things out, it'll take us 1,000 years of destruction and saying, okay, records show that this is bad, so let's not do it anymore.
When it's too
And
late.
by that time, yeah, we're in the situation of climate change, and I am really hoping for the best for this country, for the world, when the rains come in our part of the world, and they've just about started. June 1st is the official start of hurricane season.
See you Saturday.
We're gonna keep our fingers crossed. We have to gear up. We're going to be getting some rest, some exercise, because with the rains come floods, and with the floods come displacement of a lot of animals. And the displacement of the animals usually means that they end up in people's homes or near people's homes, and that's a whole other terror situation to deal with.
Wow.
So caiman, snake, this, that, all sort of things are going to be happening.
Ricardo, I want to thank you very much once more for joining us on the program this morning. Thanks for bringing these. By the way, could you tell if they're male or female?
Not at this stage. The coloration and the size and so on, that will give the determination, and you get that a little later on. Right now, they're very, very similar. Very
much
similar.
so, like twins, aren't they?
Right? Yeah. Yep. And one is always going to be a little bigger than the other because the 2 eggs aren't laid at the same time. So because they're laid separately, one will hatch first, and that one that hatch first starts eating first and will grow faster.
Oh, okay.
So one's going to be a little bit bigger than the other.
Wow. Ricardo, thanks so very much. Thank you very much for joining us on the program, and thanks for bringing these guys with us.
Always a pleasure to come on. I hope folks out there are just learning. If they pick up one little thing every time we do this, we will have better educated citizens who will make better decisions with regard to our wildlife and our own lives.
Very much so. Ricardo, take care. All the best.
Thank
Good luck
you.
to you guys. All the best. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on AM Prime this morning. Wishing you a safe day ahead, a productive one. I'm Keaton Shaw, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the home store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's. WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People. FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today. The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Young at heart, purpose-driven, patriot even. When you like to party, but are still passionate about discussing important issues, the only place where your needs will be met is WESN Content Capital.
But the Vatican was quick to issue an extremely rare public apology.
The Pope never intended to offend or express himself in homophobic terms, and he extends his apologies to those who felt offended by the use of a term, as reported by others.
The 87-year-old has been known for his outreach to LGBTQ+ Catholics, but his reported comments could hinder the progress made, according to this spokesperson for a Catholic LGBTQ+ group.
I think there could be a chance that the trust between Pope Francis and the LGBT community could be affected.
It's also got tourists talking during visits of the Vatican.
He is the Pope, he is the head of the Church. I think he should be more careful and mindful of the things that come out of his mouth.
While his supporters have long argued that the Pope has changed the tone of the Church's attitude, little has tangibly changed in terms of gay rights in Catholicism under his tenure.
Next to India, where temperatures in the capital, New Delhi, hit a record 52.3 degrees Celsius today. That's over 126 degrees Fahrenheit. Officials now warning of risks of water shortages, calling for locals to be responsible in controlling their water use. The heat is continuing in Pakistan as well. Temperatures there have been close to the national record set at 54 degrees Celsius. Shazeb Wala in Punjab reports.
Parts of Punjab are scorching under a brutal heat wave, with some areas exceeding 47 degrees Celsius. The temperature is 4 to 6 degrees higher than the average at this time of the year. This farmer puts a wet cloth on his head to cool off. Despite the heat, Muhammad Imran works during the hottest hours of the day.
You see here that the seeds have germinated, but nothing has grown. It's because of the heat. 40% of this plot has become barren. We sweat a lot, we have aches everywhere, and we're exhausted. Before sleeping, I take paracetamol, but the next morning I still feel fatigued. It's so hot. I take a muscle relaxer before starting work, and we have to work more because we have to water our crops more.
The country's hospitals are overwhelmed by hundreds of patients due to extreme heat. The symptoms are the same: dehydration, nausea, dizziness, and extreme fatigue. This 70-year-old man fell ill after going out to run errands.
पहले भी थी दर्द की दिल की तकलीफ पहले भी थी ठीक है पहले भी दिल की तकलीफ थी जब गर्मी आई तो उससे दिल की तकलीफ बढ़ गई ठीक है हम आपको कुछ मेडिसिन देंगे वो आपने मेडिसिन लेनी इंशाल्लाह ठीक हो जाएंगे यहाँ poor
As our country is poor, most people cannot afford proper facilities like air conditioning, and this situation adds a burden to the health sector. With each stroke, already overloaded hospitals come under more stress.
The dangerous heat is a daily challenge for a large number of Pakistanis. 1/5 of the population lives under the poverty line.
We don't have running water. It only comes for a few hours a day, and we store it in buckets and jerry cans. It's very hard, especially at night. Often I wake up in the middle of the night sweating and suffocating. I have to go outside to get some fresh air. I don't have money to buy an air conditioner or even pay for its electricity cost.
Pakistan is not yet done with extreme heat. 2 more heat waves are expected to hit the country in the coming weeks.
Let's come back to Paris now, and there are less than 2 months to go before the 2024 Olympic Games kick off. But landlords who are hoping to rent out their properties for top dollar this summer are in for a bit of a disappointment. Accommodation rates for the Games a few months ago were sky high, but with the market now filled with owners hoping to make some extra cash, the rates just keep dropping. Vedika Bahel and our colleagues at France 2 report.
Landlords had hoped to make hot profits during the Olympic period, but with an oversaturated market, the return may just be lukewarm.
This flat is situated in the 11th arrondissement of Paris, close to the Place de la Bastille.
Here in Paris, this 90 square metre property can fit 8 people, but costing between 350 and 550 euros a night, it has yet to be reserved at all. The number of accommodation available in the French capital has exploded, going from 65,000 properties available last August to 130,000 this year.
The supply has considerably increased. And many people have added their properties on platforms such as Airbnb or Booking.com. As a result, prices are not going to increase by a factor of 10, but rather by a factor of 3 or 4 for premium and luxury flats, and ratios of 1 to 3 for more average flats.
A year ago, properties like this 56 square metre flat were listed for as high as €1,000 a night. But the average nightly rate has dropped to €508 this April. Even hotels in prime locations are finding that they're not filling rooms as fast as they'd have liked.
Initially, we were hoping to triple our usual prices for this period, but that's proving difficult to achieve. So we've decided to go for double. We thought we'd fill our hotels more quickly and get more requests from groups, but that hasn't been the case.
According to analysis by AirDNA, Paris's occupancy rate during the Games stands at 28%, only marginally higher than last year's 24% for the same period.
And staying in Paris, plans to give the famous Champs-Élysées a makeover have been submitted to the Paris City Hall. There are 150 proposals on the table to try and give back to the most beautiful avenue in the world a bit of shine. That is particularly true when it comes to Parisians who for years now have been leaving the avenue to tourists. Emerald Maxwell takes a closer look at some of the proposals.
It's overrun with tourists and cars, some 50,000 vehicles a day. But Paris's most famous avenue long ago lost its charm for Parisians. So will a revamp help its appeal? Plans to reinvent the Champs-Élysées aim to make it greener and reclaim 2 of its 6 lanes of traffic for pedestrians.
It would be nice because we're being invaded by cars, and pedestrians need to stroll too, don't they?
The more it's pedestrianized and the fewer cars there are, the happier I'll be, and the more likely I would come here, which I never do apart from for work.
Aside from those who work in the neighborhood or are just passing through, Parisians make up less than 5% of the avenue's visitors. But it wasn't always like this. Renovated by Baron Haussmann in the 19th century, it soon became fashionable. With its beautiful shop windows and entertainment venues, Parisians used to love strolling along the Champs-Élysées. Now urban planners say its luxury stores only draw tourists. They want to give the avenue its appeal back, with more green spaces, twice as many cycle lanes, and by pedestrianising most of Concorde, the largest square in Paris, leaving just 1 lane for traffic.
How do we get Parisians to want to go to the Champs-Élysées and not to say, we don't go there anymore?
The Paris City Council will now examine the proposals, with the overhaul projected for completion by 2030.
Well, for many of you who've gone for a drive or a walk in the French countryside, getting lost on a road or a path with no name is actually pretty common. But the French government is now trying to get smaller towns to change that and give those places a name. We're going to talk more about this with Solange Mougin, who joins me in the studio. Hi, Solange.
Hi, Jeannie.
So giving a name to these places or these roads is a little more complicated than it seems. And it also seems that there's a deadline that's approaching to establish these addresses.
Yeah, there are just 2 days left for small French towns that have less than 2,000 residents, and there are 35,000 of them, for them to make sure that they have names on all their roads, homes and places in their village. They all have a specific address. Now, this move is part of a law called the 3D legislation, and it was passed in 2022. It's named the 3D because of it's called the Differentiation, Decentralization, and Deconcentration and Simplification Law. And its goal is essentially to simplify the work of town halls across France. But one element of this law, the giving of addresses and road names to hundreds of thousands of places, well, it's proving to be a huge undertaking. Bigger towns had until January 1st, and now these smaller towns have until Saturday, June 1st, to abide by the law. Before the law, there were more than 350,000 roads and routes in France that did not have an official name. Just 15% of small towns had done this for all addresses. Now, today, the changes concern nearly 2 million French people who will now have a new or a different address. For example, in the town of Marcoles in central France, there are less than 600 residents, but there are hundreds of names that needed to be given.
We're establishing between 400 and 450 addresses in the town of Marcoles, which is a lot. So it would be surprising if there aren't ones we forget, make mistakes on, or double up. things like that.
So, Solange, why does the government want these places in France to have specific addresses? And what will happen if they don't?
Well, luckily and hopefully nothing will happen for now for these town halls, as there are some 200,000 roads that haven't been named yet. Just over half of these towns have done so, but the other half have not. There are no fines currently if the town does not name every route. But that said, once the law goes into effect June 1st, if the municipality hasn't done it, then it could be liable for damages if the lack of an address causes, for example, firefighters or ambulances to lose their way and not to get to a fire or an ill person because they got lost. So small towns, but also cities before them, well, they've been working for years to name, or some of them have been working for years to name everything. In some places, like in the southwest city of Sala, the city asked locals what they wanted for their unnamed streets.
On social media, the name that came out on top was Simone Veil, Simone de Beauvoir and Josephine Baker, but also more original names like Truffle Street or Foie Gras Road, because we're in the capital of gastronomy. The added value is clear in regard to tourism to use GPS location tracking. It's also the case for first responders. You have to think about how it will be easier for them to find out where they need to be. And finally, it will help mail services with letters and packages.
As we just heard, there are many reasons to create established road names and addresses. Many homes are actually given large numbers of their addresses, and this actually refers to the meters from the start of the road. This is for future urbanization and also to help first responders know the distance. So there is this safety aspect. There's also high-speed internet cables. They require specific address tags. GPS systems also use them, as do postal and delivery personnel.
All right, so there's a lot of arguments as to why these address changes and these new names are a good thing, but the law has still created quite a bit of an uproar.
Well, there's the question of what to name these roads and paths. Sometimes it works out well in a sort of collegial manner with towns picking specific names, either that already existed by word of mouth or are in the history of the place, or are picking new ones that have a specific local significance. Those choices have solidified the history of these places.
People like narratives, not lies, stories. It can help younger generations who feel lost to understand their history. As we say in the north in Ch'ti, if you don't know where you come from, you can't know where to go.
However, as Jeannie was referring to it, there has been a lot of pushback as well, because sometimes the changes have not taken into account regional specificities and regional languages, or the choices have actually been outsourced because doing the research and naming things, well, it costs money and time. Many hamlets, or lieux-dits as we call them in French, well, they've been called by a specific name for hundreds of years, and then they were suddenly changed into something else entirely. In Alsace, where there's a strong regional sentiment, there's been pushback about naming streets in French versus Alsatian. In Brittany also, an association has even called on UNESCO to help save these lieux-dits or these hamlet names, which they argue have been given names in French and not in the traditional Breton. So there are many people in French villages who fear that these changes and this standardization, well, that it's chipping away from their local history and their regional specificities.
All right, Solange, that's fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for that look at that new law that's going to put addresses, make addresses necessary here in France. Thank you very much. Thanks to Solange, and thanks to you for watching. Don't go away. I'll be back at the top of the hour with more headlines.
Every day, the economy shapes our lives. Globalization, the financial ebb and flows, and new technologies profoundly transform our society. Going beyond the numbers, People and Profit analyses the impact of the economy on our lives. Presented by Kate Moody, People and Profit on France 24 and France24.com.
I'm Rochelle Harrison-Pless in Sydney. Whether it's an environmental story, business feature or breaking news, I report on the stories that matter from across Australia and New Zealand here on France 24.
Rochelle Harrison-Pless, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world. 24, your window on the world. Liberté, égalité, actualité. Don't miss Prime News Paris with Thomas Burgess-Watson. Get a better knowledge and understanding of current affairs with our experts and reporters around the world.
I'll bring you Prime News Paris every evening right here on France 24.
WESN.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Court of Appeal delivers unanimous ruling on Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Act. Chaguanas Main Road on fire as police crack down on illegal vending. Diego Martin murder pushes homicide toll to 236. Tourist reports hotel room break-in and theft in Tobago. Office of the Prime Minister confirms public holiday long weekend. Now for the details. The Court of Appeal has ruled unanimously that the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Act is valid and constitutional. According to the judgment delivered this afternoon, the Act, which establishes the Revenue Authority, does not breach the constitutional rights of public officers. Finance and Economy Minister Colum Imbud has responded to the judgment by posting on his X platform account, quote, "We can now move swiftly to improve and maximize revenue collection for the benefit of all citizens." A police exercise cracking down on illegal vending in Chaguanas this afternoon has triggered a fire resistance with a huge inferno lit on the main road near the market. Traffic was diverted as the road was impassable. Fire tenders were summoned to put out the blaze and clear the debris. A man was gunned down in Diego Martin on Tuesday afternoon, pushing the homicide toll to 236. The man sustained gunshot wounds to his head and body. Reports are that around 12:15 p.m., several gunshots were heard near a bar located opposite an unemployment relief program office of the Diego Martin Main Road. Officers from the West End Police Station responded and Region 1 Homicide Bureau and Crime Scene Unit processed the scene. Tobago police are investigating two reports of break-ins on the island. In the first incident, PC Jack is investigating a report of a break-in at an apartment at the Tropicist Hotel. Police report that around 8:30 p.m. on Saturday, a 49-year-old man from Orlando, Florida, who was occupying one of the rooms, secured his apartment and went away. Upon returning around 11 p.m., he observed that several items, including jewelry valued at $500 US, shaving sets, and cologne were missing. The police were notified. The other report was of a break-in over the weekend at the Bucco Early Childhood Center, where $11,000 in cash was stolen from the school. Friday, May 31st is officially being recognized as a public holiday. The Office of the Prime Minister Communications today confirmed that in accordance with the provisions of Section 3(2) of the Public Holidays and Festivals Act, Chapter 19(5), the public is hereby notified that Friday, May 31st, 2024 will be recognized as a public holiday in TNT. This is due to the celebration of both Corpus Christi and Indian Arrival Day public holidays on Thursday, May 30th. Well, that's it. News on the hour on WESN. I am Sarah Ali. Thank you for watching.
WESN.
These days, it seems as though there's more bad news than good. And for most people, finding an end to the suffering, a window to a new path where we could maybe try to start to solve our problems, seems to be so far unattainable from where we individually sit. It's almost as though it doesn't exist on a practical level. If you really think about it, and it's one of the realities that I find myself facing these days, it's almost as though you want desperately radical change because there's significant doubt if the status quo can be improved enough to actually start to work properly. I challenge anyone who would say that yes, while technically speaking EBC, our electoral process, works on a practical level, it works with regards to elections being relatively free and fair and transparent enough and devoid of controversy to a realistic or reasonable degree. The flip side of practicality is the results don't really seem to work for us. Capitalism, democracy, a lot of people want to decry it, and then they look to other forms of government and economic management, hoping that it's better, with the assumption that it would be better because what we have right now seemingly is not working. But then one could argue democracy is the worst form of government except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time. So what is left for us to do? How much can we finesse the system that exists before we have to try and figure out a whole new ideology? See, I think this is why there are those in other parts of the world that are looking for solutions, and where they're looking for them are areas that, to some extent, whether rightfully or wrongfully, our predecessors basically discarded. They considered and discarded it. They may have even tried it to some extent and eventually discarded it. And that's why we are where we are today. And it's almost as though history is a cycle and we come right back to the beginning. At the end of the day, though, what most people want is not so much a better system. They're just idealistic. And they want the ideal, they want a utopia. But it all comes back down to the same fundamental issue. A system for politics or economics is dependent on the people. It doesn't matter what system you use, humanity will find a way to exploit it, turn it upside down on its head, and mess it up in ways unforeseen by whoever implemented it. And that's assuming that the implementation is done in good faith. In some cases, the bad faith comes from the start. But again, regardless, it's about the people. And I fear that not only do I have to look at how long the road might be if we really want change in this country. It's not going to happen overnight. But then what compounds the issue is it seems as though people just aren't willing to try. And I wonder, is it that we're so caught up with our own lives, with all of the instant gratification of the digital age? Or is it that we procrastinate because we're so intimidated by what is before us? It's better to just not even bother looking into it, because if you don't know about something, it stresses you out less. We shelve things. And then it allows room for the manipulation of truth or the exploitation of facts or emotions. And why do I say that? Well, let's start off today's Daily Review. One of the things that has been a major topic on the show, although we haven't necessarily always highlighted it, but it's the police use of force policy. We essentially had a tangential debate on topics around that issue last Friday with some callers, after it came out that the alleged kidnappers were killed in a shootout with the police. And then there is another call now, a mother of an alleged criminal or someone who was allegedly involved with criminals. He himself, it's questionable to the degree of his involvement of any activity outside of being with others who may be suspected in crimes. He was shot and killed Saturday. I believe he is a teenager, 17. And his mother now, I think at first there was some amount of acceptance by some of the family members with regards to, look, we warned them against hanging out with a certain crowd. But now the mother's questioning the whole story. It's not adding up to her. She's not content with it. And again, this is the uphill battle that the police will have to face whether they want to or not, due to the lack of trust and confidence. But the use of force policy now, I think, has gone or has been taken into the political sphere. And there's a part of me that wonders why, because how it was taken, you would think that when you do have people questioning police's use of force, that would be the issue that would be up for political debate. One side will defend, one side will decry. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is that the opposition leader, she is basically saying two things. She is promising, if her party wins the next general election, that off-duty officers, police and prison officers specifically, will receive a license to carry off-duty firearms. And she may even be promising them a gun. So I don't know if they have to pay for it for themselves or if they will be able to. will receive a licensed gun to carry off-duty. That and all is somewhat controversial because unless she makes changes to legislation, technically it's not up to elected officials. The head of the Police Complaints Authority, David West, reminds the public, well, it's the commissioner who decides that. And then she went on to say things, and this is interesting because I believe she might be kind of half and half. She's on, her party hasn't in elections. To some extent, that's what's the topic at hand, but she's speaking in part to national issues. Potentially similar to the local government elections, using national issues to provide support for the star team, and her participation in the internal UNC elections has not gone unquestioned, because Dr. Shane Mohammed rightfully asked, you're not part of the slate because your position is not up for election, so isn't it somewhat unfair to favor one side over the other? If she was up, if the post of political leader was up and she was part of the slate officially, but I would imagine people would not necessarily fault her for drawing a line in the sand. But she has gone on to say things like police officers should stand their ground, and I want to make sure that I get it correct. She says, if criminals point a gun at you, shoot at you or attack you, return fire with full force, defend yourselves. Don't be hesitant. Being hesitant can cost you your life. All right. Don't hesitate. But then she says, you know, they have to use their discretion. Now, in a life or death situation, using your discretion, you have to think through the situation, and thinking through the situation tends to involve, you know, you can't respond at the drop of a hat. Because these types of things are fluid, they vary, they're not constant, they're not binary, they're not necessarily black and white. Someone shoots at you, you don't just automatically shoot back. Not necessarily because you don't want to harm the person shooting at you. You need to make sure what's behind the person shooting at you, so that if your bullets miss, they don't hit an innocent or do unnecessary damage to critical property. And part of what I don't understand is the opposition leader's words. They're not necessarily treating any sort of issue. Police officers, from what I believe to be the case, they have a use of force policy. The commissioner spoke about it. She didn't necessarily offer any significant utterances besides just stating that there's a use of force policy and police officers more or less can defend themselves. This is not something that's up for debate. No one is questioning if police officers should or should not defend themselves when attacked. People are questioning other circumstances over police shootings. And again, it's standard for them to be investigated so that officers could be cleared affirmatively, not just assumed, right? That would help their standing with regards to public trust and confidence. The Minister of National Security, he basically is calling out the opposition. He said that she had reckless comments months ago, and he's basically called out the fact that, look, the police always were doing this. This is not new. So again, I don't understand. We have examples of questions for the use of force policy, but that's not what the opposition leader is debating. She's not defending or going against the officers directly in the specifics of where the questions lie. But then on top of that, and I can't fault the Minister of National Security, right? At the end of the day, judge the message based on the merits of the message. They always had that right, and they've used that right. But they are constrained to observe the principle that you must use no more force than is necessary. And he's correct to say this. That's one of the underlying principles that allows a police force to function in a modern society, to use force that is necessary and to not go beyond that point. Of course, it's subjective, hence why these things are constantly looked at and scrutinized. And of course, there is some room for the officers where in a high-stress situation, if it's reasonable, even if the outcomes are not necessarily the best, if they exercise reasonable judgment, at the end of the day, you can't fault them for that. He also went on, the minister also went out and called out the opposition for having diverging opinions. And this is not the first time I've brought this up, because Adija Kameen, Senator Kameen, she has recently stated, and there's an article, an old article from in the same paper where the minister's words are quoted, perpetrators must be afforded a fair trial so that the public could regain confidence in the criminal justice system. She has said that. The opposition leader, I think she's trying to strike a chord with those citizens who are so frustrated that they are willing to give the police more leeway. Let's put it that way. I'm not saying that the citizens, you know, those who have called me and those in general who want to see the police, you know, be tougher on crime. I'm not saying that the citizens want the police to break the law outright, but leeway, you know, benefit of the doubt. They're willing to not necessarily be critical and harsh and judgmental on the police. And I think the opposition leader is trying to touch on that. But to some extent, I don't know how useful her entrance into debate through this window, through this mode, through this angle, that's the word I was looking for, is the correct one. Is it reckless? Because Khadija Amin, her point is also something that at the end of the day, I think it's not that we have to use it to browbeat every officer that has used his firearm against a suspect or in public, etc., etc. But it's a principle that we should always keep in the back of our mind. And we should always, as much as necessary, defer to. We can't forget about it. The fact that, look, people are innocent until proven guilty. That's one of the issues where trust and confidence in the police service has degraded. And in another story, it'll highlight the issue. If we want witnesses to help provide evidence to solve these crimes and to get convictions, we need trust and confidence from the people of the communities who need to at least have some degree of faith that the police's actions are above board, because in some cases it's their family members, like this mother, who are going to bear the brunt of the police response when things escalate to violence. And if we lose the family members of these communities, one of the things that the police are asking for is for the family members of people involved in crime to not just turn a blind eye, but if they believe that their loved ones are being gunned down for no good reason, we're going to lose the whole cross-section of the population who have the information the police need in order to prosecute these cases, in order to work our way up the ladder. So, and then Gary Griffith himself also weighed in on this. And this is where, again, just as much as Minister Hines has pointed out, you know, it seems as though you're trying to straddle both sides of the issue here, with the opposition leader saying one thing and a member of the UNC saying something else. Gary Griffith, some people might criticize what he said. He said, what is required in any aspect of policing is minimum use of force. The minimum use of force policy has to be maintained. If at any time we go over that threshold, we become no different than the criminals themselves. Some people might think his one shot, one kill statements contradict this. I don't necessarily think so, but I will acknowledge the fact that what he has communicated in the past, people can assume that he was pushing for what one might interpret the opposition leaders pushing for now. But at the very least, what he says here again, the one shot, one kill man is saying this. that the minimum use of force is what is required for policing in modern society. And again, it's something that we should never forget. Despite all of the frustrations of what we want to see, we have to always realize there are minimal thresholds of what society needs before things break down. And we already see that happening. We don't need to wait for it. Trust and confidence is broken down in part because of some instances where people question the police use of force. Okay. And I just want to hit one more story before we welcome the good lady herself. And this is why one newspaper has reported that a Canadian YouTuber, Christopher Hughes, aka Christmas List, was arrested by police officers of the SIU, facing possible charges under the Anti-Gang Act and Immigration Act. Now, I think it goes twofold. One, he was in he was in videos that he himself produced with gang members. He spoke to them, they were brandishing weapons. So to some degree, he has put himself on camera in situations that are potentially illegal in TNT. Because some of these weapons, you're not supposed to have them in the first place. And he basically has video evidence of him being there in proximity. To what degree now can he be charged for involvement? I'm not entirely sure, right? One of the things in the report is that apparently officers remarked at how some of the people who identified themselves as gang members were people who in the past were witnesses that were offered protection and provided information on cases. Which again goes back to trust and confidence in police. Some of the witnesses that we will need in order to go up the ladder of criminal organized crime would be some of the criminals themselves. And if they don't trust that the police will actually keep them alive, they're not going to turn towards the police. But, and this is for Mr. San Fernando, one of the other aspects is the immigration policy. Now, I question not that Mr. San Fernando on principle was right or wrong, but rather if the authorities will actually go through with this. And it seems, at least in this case, they are. And this sets the precedent, so now there's a certain degree of expectation. Otherwise, questions of political motivations would unfortunately have to be considered. But at the end of the day, he came here to do a job but his stated reason for entry was, vacation. He's a tourist. He's on a tourist visa or what have you. But he's working. And Mr. San Fernando is right, and it seems as though the authorities, this is obvious. He has had multiple videos. It's obvious he's not just passing through, and to some extent, maybe he is following the trend of other YouTubers. It's a professional undertaking, and that goes against the stated reason why he's here. So, to some extent, immigration has to now look into all of it. I guess if it was one YouTuber doing one video, they might not have bothered. But the pattern has reached the point where the government can't ignore it because it's undermining the laws of the land. So, with that said, let's take a break. We'll welcome the good lady herself and continue the conversation. Stay tuned. Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios, but they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Coming soon to WESN.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren. Coming soon to WESN.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this,
Screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Welcome back to Talk About, ladies and gentlemen. And just when it's interesting, just when the 8th minister, a former minister in the Ministry of Finance, had comments about a lack of confidence in the economy based on a lot of the recent news, at least in part, we also have our own former Minister of Finance here with us today to speak about, to some extent, a lack of confidence in the economy, but in part in energy. So, good lady herself, attorney at law, former Minister of Finance, Karen Seshera, welcome once again.
Yeah, and I came ready to speak on the energy sector. I saw that the Court of Appeal gave its decision, with which I agree. I mean,
this is for the
TTRA.
The TTRA, yes.
Yes, I do agree with that decision, and I anticipate that if there's an appeal, that the government will be successful. I mean, there are revenue authorities all over the world. There are different models that are applied, and I think the model that was eventually utilized, which I had favored from the very inception, and it was my personal choice, left to me, it would have been the choice that would have been implemented from the very get-go. I think that the model is a good model. It's a sort of an administrative model rather than shutting down the whole Board of Inland Revenue and Customs. You give people a choice. You decide who you want in the entity. You decide if that person is suitable. If they don't want to, then they can get a visa, or they can be transferred to an equal a position which gives them the equal status, position, as well as salary. I think that was the model that was being put forward, and which I certainly supported from the get-go. But well, I'm glad to see it's being implemented today, and it is absolutely right. I mean, at the time when I know that's not what I came to talk about, but since I was involved,
it has come up, yes.
Yes, and since I was very much involved in it, we knew at the time, and that was so many years ago, that there was $5 billion at least of unpaid taxes. Now they're saying it's 15 million, and where we have, which would lead me into the top topic today, which is about the energy sector, because that's the taxes that companies operating in Trinidad and individuals in Trinidad who have not paid their taxes with the interest due, and that is an effective way in a government that finds itself in a lot of difficulties in relation to its imports far exceeding its exports. And when we talk about that, I come back to a topic that you've heard me speak about before, and that is energy. And I have to say to the Prime Minister's, the Prime Minister's frankness, for want of a better word, I don't think he has ever downplayed the importance of Dragonfield to us. He has never downplayed the fact that we do not have enough natural gas. And he hasn't ever downplayed the fact that we have to find sources of the natural gas. Firstly, for the LNG, because it's Shell and BP are the major investors in that part of the, what you call the upstream part of the energy sector. And then, of course, the downstream, which is the petrochemical industries. There's no question that it is a major revenue earner. And the Prime Minister said it in 2019. And he said, if we don't find some sort of solution, Trinidad, and we don't get investors, we are in dire straits. But more recently, in December of 2023, which is just a few months ago, he was quoted as saying that the commercial access, and he was talking about the Dragonfield actually, access to Venezuela's Dragonfield is the lifeblood of Trinidad and Tobago. That's a very, very serious statement to make, because what you are saying is that not only don't we have the natural gas, but you are relying on the Dragonfield to at least provide us with some of the natural gas, certainly for the LNG and downstream. And even if that were to happen, which it can't happen for at least 3-4 years, this has been going on since for at least 10 years, the Dragonfield, and it has not come to fruition. But why he's saying that, he's on good grounds. We have data that shows the state of our energy sector now, and why we have now, in one quote, he had said 4.1 billion is what we would need, and the Ministry of Energy had said we had 2.4 billion cubic feet per day. So if that's half of what we want, the figure I got here, which you get different figures, so I'm going to use it anyhow. They're saying we have a shortfall of 1.1 billion cubic feet per day. That's a serious situation. And what we know is in the last 8 years, 63% decline in drilling. The gas production, a 32% decline, is the lowest in 19 years. 37% decline in LNG, 28% decline in oil. And we had an article in the papers the other day where it showed that the oil production had fallen by 8%. So we are in a really, really serious situation. I think what we have here, I'm looking at my data here, the LNG is at a 60% decline in terms of what they require, and we have not been able to find that natural gas. And why am I bringing it up today? I'm bringing it up today because I hope I'm going to be wrong, but you have to look at the geopolitics, and there are a number of factors that would influence my conclusion. In spite of the Minister of Energy trying to paint an over-cheerful, I mean, you can be positive, but I mean, you're going a little too far, because what it's really doing is creating a false sense of hope. And when I know you must know better, because, for instance, I looked at it, it's not just my opinion, but as soon as I saw it, I said, well, that's deflection. You're having conversations about Shell, with Shell to develop a gas field. That gas field is in the same area as the Dragon Field, the Lauren Manatee. If you can't get the Dragon Field started, and Shell is your partner, why would it be any difference with the with this? I can't pronounce it, but it's a hyphenated word. You talked about it, and then all of a sudden you heard nothing more. And then you talked about a solar plant. Now that solar plant is important because the intention was that it would provide electricity for domestic purpose, so that we could divert a lot of the natural gas that was used to provide electricity to the LNG and hopefully the downstream, because the LNG plants, with Shell and BP being the major investors there, take first pick in that. And now you're hearing, since 2018 that was supposed to happen, and now I don't know where we are with that. But what I will say is that what made me bring this topic up today is there's an article in Standard & Poor's in February of this year. And if I use that as an indicator of maybe some of the advice they're giving the government, and the government is following, I don't think they should, that Dragon Field, I'll really be surprised. And I'll tell you, that Dragon Field gas, which is 4.3 trillion, 4.2 trillion cubic feet of gas, I'll tell you the challenges with that. We have to make a distinction between the license that PDVSA of Venezuela grants to us and the license that it grants to Shell. That's between them. That's not the problem. That's not the problem. The problem is that OFAC, which is the Office of Financial Assets, Foreign Assets Control, they are the ones that will make the decision, and Shell has said that they are not prepared to go forward unless they can get a minimum of a 15-year license from OFAC, not from Venezuela, right? Because first of all, our deal with Venezuela is not, as far as I'm aware, is not an exclusive one. And in fact, I think he has encouraged other players. ENI and Repsol has been there for quite a while, and there's been talk about them, Venezuela expanding its LNG. They already have a small LNG plant for domestic purposes, but they're talking about exporting LNG to Europe. And so when you see that, and you see these things that, you know, that maybe discourage Shell from making that final investment decision, because that has not been made as yet. I've had discussions with, and I've looked, and they have not made that final investment decision, and there are lots of reasons, in my view, why they would want not to do that. For one thing, according to the February 3rd Reuters report, it was reported in the Venezuela Gazette, and quote unquote, in no, oh God, you know, it's bad when you can't read your handwriting. In no case, Venezuela's state income from Dragon Field project will be less than 45% of the gross income of the licensees. So, is that something that's encouraging? Then you're looking at the price of natural gas. I suspect that when the prices were arrived at, if I use the budget price of $5 US per MMBTU, or the language that they use, if I use that, then I have a feeling that the price was, you know, a little higher than it is now. I mean, the price of gas, natural gas, goes between 167 and 240 something now, but I don't expect it's going to go very far. And Shell has said that one of the issues for them is the OFAC license. They want a 15-year license from the United States, not from Venezuela, from the United States, because they are not going to put hundreds of millions of dollars into a project with their shareholders unless they have that assurance. Secondly, the price. They are in discussions about what the price that should be paid for that natural gas. What the price was a few years back is not the price of natural gas today. And the other issue is that, do they need our natural gas? Who needs our natural gas? I have actually gotten from the U.S. Treasury, I wanted to get it correct, U.S. Energy Administration, and this is telling you how much LNG is being exported to Europe from the United States of America. They're saying that in 2021, they use, let me use the correct language. They said it was, the supply was 27% of the, what they called it, they did it in centimeters, of 26 million centimeters. In 2021 it was 15.8, in 2022 40.4, in 2023 45, and actually in 2023 is 48, 2022 is 44. The point I'm making is they have increased the supply of LNG, so the United States is exporting LNG to Europe out of the Ukraine-Russian war that caused them not to be able to rely on on Russia to supply Europe, and in particular Germany, with the gas line, with an LNG. America is doing that very thing. There's also a huge buildup of natural gas after what they experienced with the Ukraine war that's going on for over a year. These countries have built up their inventory. They've also had a mild winter, so they've not had to use as much natural gas as they did before. They're also taking a more restricted use, a more conservative use of their natural gas. And what does that all mean? It all means that Trinidad and Tobago, in the grand scheme of things, are not a big player. And when you see America taking a maximum pressure approach to Venezuela, and we have the arbitral award where we have had to come out, rightly so, in a sense, it's a support Guyana as a CARICOM country. That is not endearing us to Mr. Maduro. And many of the countries who think about investing in Venezuela and in Venezuela's natural gas to talk about the mercurial nature of Mr. Maduro, the fear of Mr. Maduro, you know. They talk also that even if they got the permission, the United States may say, okay, you could go ahead and export, because what they wanted what Eni and Repsol and these European countries wanted, and for 7 years they fought for it, and they finally got it. They wanted permission to export the LNG to Europe. Before they couldn't. They supplied the domestic market, but they have gotten permission from Maduro after 7 years of effort to export the LNG and the condensation to Europe. So you are looking at a situation where Trinidad and Tobago is a very small player and almost of little consequence. And so it brings me to why I brought up all of this. I brought up all of this because I don't know if you noticed the minister, maybe tomorrow he will say something because I'm saying something today. But he's the one that said the energy sector is thriving. You could say things like that. I mean, you're saying it thriving. I mean, oh gosh, your prime minister more honest. I shouldn't say more honest. Forgive me for using that language, but more credible. You know, your minister is more credible. He's telling you like it is, and you saying it thriving. Well, let me tell you what you're doing now. Now, the reality of Dragonfield is hitting you. All of those things and more, which you know, and I am not privy to, but I have to look at the writing on the wall. And what you're seeing is that they're turning their attention away from Dragonfield, or so it appears, and now turning it to which people have been saying for quite a while, to the Manatee Field. The Manatee Field, you know, the Lauren Manatee, 70-something% is in Venezuelan waters, 34% in our waters. And they are turning their attention to developing the Manatee Field and getting the natural gas from there, which is on the southeast of Trinidad. And that you do not need America's permission, because you are not dealing with Venezuela. This is our natural gas in our waters that we can develop. And now they are talking Manatee. They are also talking about the northeastern part near Tobago, looking at developing those gas fields. So all of those gas fields, where are they located? In our waters. And therefore you are not having to deal with all the issues with Venezuela, which Shell, as a major player in the LNG business, has clearly shown that it is not ready to sign on the dotted line, because that dotted line is the final investment decision, and that has not come to pass. A license is not the same thing. Venezuela could give us the license to the Wahoo. They could give Shell a license. They're giving everybody, giving lots of licenses. They be not exclusive. I think they give license to Eni, they give license to Repsol. That's not the problem. The problem is United States. The United States does not want to facilitate Venezuela in having access to money, because that is what is behind it all. Instead of saying that they must be paid in kind for their natural gas, the idea is that they were to be paid in whatever currency for their natural gas. Venezuela's access to its U.S. currency in all the different banks have been blocked. You think that President Biden, is going to then roll over, especially when the United States is benefiting in Europe, providing Europe with now 48% of its LNG needs. That is what the United States is doing right now. So the writing is on the wall, and I say the writing is on the wall because two of the things that the Standard & Poor's did recommend in February of this year, under their looking at the energy sector in particular, they did mention the Dragonfield again, and they say, well, of course, we get through Dragonfield, that will help, but I don't see that happening. It's just not happening, and the minister not talking too much about that. I think they have resigned themselves to the Manatee and to the northeast gas fields. You know how long that's going to take? but according to what I have been understood, it will take till the end of this decade. End of this decade. Yeah, because they haven't started anything.
Well, and I think that's the thing. Shell signed, I believe it was Shell, signed with the NGC, but we are not seeing, we're paying Venezuela, but we haven't heard of any spending with regards to implementation. Because at the end of the day, you need a pipeline to go from Dragon to here. But you see, that's why we haven't started. Yeah, but that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. A license is, in contract law, because that's all this is contract law at an international level. Trinidad, through NGC, and PDVSA, I'm always mispronouncing it, on the part of Venezuela, have entered into a contract that gives us a 30-year license to be able to exploit and to have access to their gas in exchange for the payment of money. That's between Venezuela and Trinidad. Similarly, between Shell and as one of the partners and Trinidad. That's not the problem. That is not the problem. The problem is that Shell is saying two things. They are not happy with the price. I don't know what they had negotiated at the beginning, but they're not happy with the price, because that's what you're reading. They're reading articles saying that Shell is not, and this is very recent, and I have a feeling it has a lot to do with the fact that the price of gas has fallen so dramatically. If I just use the budget price of $5, which was just in September, October, then they're not happy with the price. But more important, they are saying that they are not moving forward unless they get a 15-year license from OFAC. That is what they're saying. They say they are not prepared to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in developing a gas line, and for United States to put a ban. If Mr. Trump comes back in, you could know that is a. Did you just say when?
Huh?
Did you just say when?
No, if.
Okay.
If. And you're right, you could say when, because all these statistics are saying you're running a close, the polling data is showing a very close run.
I don't know if it's close. It looks like without the case, without his court matters, the expectation would be he would be favored to win over Biden.
But that's even worse. You don't think Shell is not looking at that? And then you have BRICS now having more and more members, including Iran, who has now provided the financing for the rehabilitation of a number of refineries. And those refineries flare methane, which can be converted into natural gas. And that is something, another source for Venezuela. Venezuela is for Venezuela. You can't be mad with them. Europe for Europe, America for America, Trinidad for Trinidad. Everybody trying to look after their own interests, right? The Petro-Caribe issue that understandably a lot of the Caribbean islands wanted to see reinstated. The reason why they are playing such a major part is because of the sanctions the United States imposed on Venezuela, which prevented Venezuela from providing them with the oil and the gas at reduced prices. So the big issue here is not those licenses. That's not the license. I don't know any of them being exclusive. And it looked like INAI and Repsol, after 7 years, got permission. I get the impression they are a small LNG plant, but it was for domestic purposes, a small one, to provide electricity to Venezuela. After 7 years, it is reported in one of the a respected source. I don't want to say Reuters, I might get that wrong. But anyway, it's one of the respected sources.
Maybe
huh?
Maybe Associated Press?
One of the U.S. Energy Administration said that after 7 years, they've waited for the LNG export license. Before they couldn't export it, now Repsol and Repsol and INAI are getting permission for that. So my bottom line is I wish the Minister of Energy would stop pretending that we're not in dire straits. And by the way, if you have any doubt, I just want to give you the foreign exchange, and it's not me, you know. You don't just the messenger. I'm just the messenger. This is the message, and I tell you how serious. I didn't even know it was that bad. I said, let me just go and look at central bank figures because they give a monthly update, right? So in September 2015, we had 10.46 billion in foreign exchange. Okay, let me just say in February, we had 5.6 billion as February. In March, it was 5.4 billion. In April, it's 5.3. You seen a pattern there? You seen a pattern there? Where our foreign exchange going? All right? So I don't know who is fooling who about the state of this country. I think the Prime Minister is about the most direct about the state of our economy, what they have done to diversify and to create other avenues and to recognize the writing was on the wall and stop, stop telling people things that are Nancy stories. Stop the Nancy stories, because when it sounds like a Nancy stories, it sounds like it's politics you're playing rather than looking after the industry people. Tell the people the reality so that they can face it and then you do something about it because you're in government. That's what I have to say, and I think we've reached the...
Well, so different individual business interests are still looking to get their own individual licenses from OFAC, right?
Yes.
There's still that hope in the oil and gas sector,
yeah,
as the general license has been revoked. But some bad news on the political front. Venezuela, I believe yesterday it's reported that they revoked an invitation for observers to their elections, their national elections from the EU.
But yeah,
so
because
all of that is just...
Because America with the Barbados Accord that was supposed to last after their election, they withdrew it, right? Because Machado went to their Supreme Court and she lost, and they said she couldn't take part in elections for 15 years. They have a Supreme Court that is weighted with Republicans, right? So I don't know what's the difference.
Okay, so let's take a break. When we come back, folks,
still love America, though.
We will continue the conversations. News in the hour right now.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sarah Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Court of Appeal delivers unanimous ruling on Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Act. Chaguanas Main Road on fire as police crack down on illegal vending. Diego Martin murder pushes homicide toll to 236. Tourist reports hotel room break-in and theft in Tobago. Office of the Prime Minister confirms public holiday long weekend. Now for the details. The Court of Appeal has ruled unanimously that the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Act is valid and constitutional. According to the judgment delivered this afternoon, the Act, which establishes the Revenue Authority, does not breach the constitutional rights of public officers. Finance and Economy Minister Colum Imbut has responded to the judgment by posting on his X platform account, quote, "We can now move swiftly to improve and maximize revenue collection for the benefit of all citizens." A police exercise cracking down on illegal vending in Chaguanas this afternoon has triggered a fire resistance with a huge inferno lit on the main road near the market. Traffic was diverted as the road was impassable. Fire tenders were summoned to put out the blaze and clear the debris. A man was gunned down in Diego Martin on Tuesday afternoon, pushing the homicide toll to 236. The man sustained gunshot wounds to his head and body. Reports are that around 12:15 p.m., several gunshots were heard near a bar located opposite an unemployment relief program office off the Digicel main road. Officers from the West End Police Station responded, and Region 1 Homicide Bureau and Crime Scene Unit processed the scene. Tobago police are investigating two reports of break-ins on the island. In the first incident, PC Jack is investigating a report of a break-in at an apartment at the Tropicist Hotel. Police report that around 8:30 p.m. on Saturday, a 49-year-old man from Orlando, Florida, who was occupying one of the rooms, secured his apartment and went away. Upon returning around 11 p.m., he observed that several items, including jewelry valued at $500 US, shaving sets, and cologne were missing. The police were notified. The other report was of a break-in over the weekend at the Bucco Early Childhood Center, where $11,000 in cash was stolen from the school. Friday, May 31st is officially being recognized as a public holiday. The Office of the Prime Minister Communications today confirmed that in accordance with the provisions of Section 3(2) of the Public Holidays and Festivals Act, Chapter 19(5), the public is hereby notified that Friday, May 31st, 2024 will be recognized as a public holiday in TNT. This is due to the celebration of both Corpus Christi and Indian Arrival Day public holidays on Thursday, May 30th. Well, that's it to News on the Hour on WESN. I am Sarah Ali. Thank you for watching.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And some people might wonder, well, exactly why did we go down this road again today? Well, we just had Keaton Shaw on the show yesterday. He pointed out the fact that, look, things are bad, and perhaps maybe we're underestimating it. Then, of course, a minister in the Ministry of Finance, formerly for the Partnership Administration, he's pointing out other areas where things are not doing as well as they should, like taxation, where being nickel and dime, crime, bureaucracy, and ease of doing business, and corruption. And now, the good lady herself is here pointing out, well, look, at the end of the day, we have a contract of which we have to meet financial considerations, but we haven't even seen any ships, any work, any pipeline, anything. And to what extent now? Because we keep saying it'll take a couple years for it to get the gas, but it's a couple years from the start point, not a couple years, guaranteed, and the construction is just, it doesn't matter, it'll be like that. We have Digger Martin on the line.
And Shell has to sign off. And
Shell has to, and Shell, as the majority owner, has to foot the bill, and quite right, they don't want to, or at least not without some assurances. Digger Martin on the line. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Mr. Small, and to your co-host, the Honorable Karen Nunes Teixeira, former finance minister. I want to talk a little bit, not to interfere with your topic, but to talk on the Police Service Commissioner and not the Police Service, the Police TTPS. And I want to put a big question mark at it. Has it collapsed, or is it in a state of decline? And I'm going to identify 4 issues, current issues. 1, the shootout next to the monastery up in Tunapuna. The persons and the policemen who went on that mission, were they wearing body cameras? Because I'm not hearing anything about that. 4 was basically killed in the crossfire, and I'm going to juxtapose that with when the former Commissioner Jacobs went down to Digger Martin. There was a shootout, and there was a tralala, and they wanted to find out who killed, and eventually investigation said, okay, the police shoot their own police, right? The second thing is an issue in Shoguners yesterday on the main road. Tires were burnt and they blocked the main road. A lot of people have to know that is within 100 yards of the police station on the main road. And you mean to say that has happened? What happened to the police? They were closing their eyes?
Quick caller.
Okay? And the third point I want to raise is quickly.
Fast.
Right. A former TV host, Alexander, said he needs a lot of police on the road, not office police.
Right.
And we appointed a police at the commission of police.
What's your first point?
Nice morning.
Okay. Thank you, caller. Sorry about that, but we do have another caller waiting, and he has limited time. So,
we still on the Police Service Commission?
No, the Police Service, not the Commission. But Petty Valley, you're on here.
Good morning, Sean, and
morning,
good morning, Ms. Nunes. Ms. Nunes, I'm glad that you said something this morning with the case with the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Act. I was with on the opinion that you was against the government for collecting the taxes, but to my shock this morning, I was wrong when I heard you said that you was always thinking it was correct for the government get the taxes. So before you said that, I would have been embarrassed myself. I was going to call you and to tell you what you think about the judgment. So I'm glad I didn't embarrass myself. I didn't know where I get that you was against it.
But how could I be? I mean, I was the one that...
Caller, I think the one time we addressed it in the past, I don't think we were against the Revenue Authority.
Never. What I said is, when are they going to start it?
Yeah.
Okay, too quickly, I must congratulate Mr. San Fernando. I hope he's listening on the line. Mr. San Fernando, did bring up that topic with the blogger.
Yes.
And I'm glad to see immigration is doing something about it. But Mr. San Fernando did talk about that. I'll listen off here.
Thank you, caller. So to speak to the first caller's point, has the police service collapsed? I would say no, but I think it's like other avenues of the public service. You have a lot of really good officers, really hardworking, dedicated people that keep the thing going. And then you have the politics kind of interfering on the top.
The impression you're getting is a lot of, it seems like it's a renegade police officer that she does not, the commissioner of police does not have the kind of control over
and that's part of the problem.
Officers, and that I think is what is the message. Now when it came to the former Gary Griffith, I don't know that he, I would not say that's the reason why whatever we saw, but in her case, her ability to command her forces it just simply does not appear to be so. And it may not be, I may be incorrect, but her presence, the way that she speaks, you have to have a commanding presence. You have to instill confidence in
the public and the members of the service.
And the members of the service, and that just does not seem to be there. And the question was a good question. Where are the body cameras, you know? I don't know.
We have Claxton Bay on the line. Good morning, caller. You on here?
Yeah, good morning, Sean and Mr. Shera.
Don't listen to the TV. Just talk. Listen to the phone. Just talk to us.
I all thought that Mr. Shera was against the revenue tax, although she had talked many times that she was implementing it with Mr. Patrick Manning. But she just talks so much sometimes, so contrary. And you too, Sean, with a lot of doubt, or there's a lot of doubt in the people's mind. Like, afraid to come out and say when the government doing good things. This is supposed to be a collective thing about all of us, a responsibility for all. You understand? The beneficial for all, and I think all of us need to come out and tell the population about the things that make sense so that we could all come together and benefit. Thank you.
Thank you,
can I just respond to that? Number one,
I want to as well, but go ahead.
One, whatever I've said about the Revenue Authority is the lack of implementation, how many years it took. Secondly, when the minister had that, allowed people a grace period, and he was able to collect over, I think, about $2 billion. I congratulated him for that. And thirdly, the Revenue Authority, even before I came on this show, and even yesterday, I told Sean, I hadn't seen the judgment. I said, absolutely support it. Absolutely support it. This is what when I was minister, exactly what they are doing is exactly what we had intended to implement, but we came out of office in 2010 before it became
Right,
a
2010.
reality.
So that's why Karen is criticizing implementation. We're in 2024. It's 14 years, basically. I just want to say this. I think we need to understand that we don't pick sides.
No.
We try to judge the issues based on the individual merits of the individual issues. With regards to the Revenue Authority, I was critical about the PSA and their attempts to hamper it more than I was about the Revenue Authority. How it was done, the thing is it's potentially going to the Privy Council, so we have to wait.
I'm happy that they've done it. I'm pleased with the government for having done it, and I'm pleased that the appeal court has supported them, and I suspect when it goes to the Privy Council that they will win also.
Now is this
because it is in fact implementing what I had initially put forward to the then Prime Minister Policy Formulation Committee as the way forward.
Okay.
That is so. Just to let you know, I am quite happy about what is going on.
We have a caller from Dabadi, I believe. Good morning, caller. You're on here.
Pleasant morning to you and pleasant morning to my former minister. Karen, you look wonderful this morning.
Thank you.
I want to get away a little bit from, let me say a pleasant morning to my good friend in San Fernando too. John, when Karen became Minister of Finance, there's a project that she spearheaded with respect to the IFC. I would like Karen to speak a little bit on that with respect to, did we go down the right road? Was it implemented properly? And why are we not reaping the benefits as planned as when it started?
So
Thanks,
that we'll
and you have a nice day.
So that we'll do on a separate show because no, it has not been
long.
implemented as it should have been. And we had a global financial crisis. But whatever they have implemented as an IFC is certainly not what was intended. But it'll be the topic for another show, and I'll be very happy to discuss it.
I just want to go back because I don't know if I made the point clear enough. I think it's a very interesting thing because even in the early days of Talking Point, we observed this. Whereas I could spend 4 days a week criticizing the government, and if one day I'm criticizing the opposition, people will say I'm supporting the PNM, right? And vice versa. It works both ways. The thing about it is I don't have a preference, so I don't need to then defend some of the bad things of one side and blow up the good things. And I understand, caller from Clarksonville, what you're saying. It seems as though we don't have much good things to say. Now, as much as the Revenue Authority is something that's good, I'm not going to say, oh my gosh, look at this hallmark project that they brought to us, so revolutionary. No, it was something that was on the table for 14 years. And give them credit for at least trying to implement it where it wasn't implemented previously. I don't know. I don't know exactly why the partnership didn't try to implement it, or if they did. But it's not as though this is some great work that's originally from them that's coming out. It's something on the table. A lot of things that have been put on the table, we question the implementation. So with regards to the Revenue Authority, I need to see the end point before I could give them kudos.
But I am going to give them kudos.
But you want to give them kudos for pushing it this far.
Yeah, because it's about $15 billion in unpaid taxes that they're looking at. And I was closely associated with it, but you have to recall, for those of you who listen, the TTRA legislation was actually in the lower house, and it was passed, but the Prime Minister called the elections, and that was the end of that. But we had gone a far, far, far way. We even had drafted the TTIFC legislation. I'd gone to Dubai twice, looking at their model. And so there's so much more that could have been done, and for whatever reason, the government has failed to do that. So that's a different topic, but the Revenue Authority, I criticize the lack of implementation. Now it's been implemented, and it has been implemented in the way that I had advocated from the very get-go, and I'm happy to see that has happened, so that I am certainly not one of those who was going to be critical. I'm going to wish them the best of success in their efforts.
Yeah, because I guess, and this is an important point, the outstanding taxes, we asked the question when we got the news with regards to one institution, one private venture owing money for 20 years out of its 21 years of existence. That's not something that happens overnight. You know, it's not like, oh, well, COVID happened, so we'll just try and fudge the books once and all of a sudden it's going to be $93 million in taxes that we owe. No, there's going to be a lot of little incremental things that will allow to happen, and to some extent, perhaps the Revenue Authority might be the only way to fix some of these problems. At least in this case, it's actually an attempt being done. But like I said, I do want to see the actual implementation of the thing when it's actually operating and running.
But haven't they started already?
No, well, remember the court matter, right? They won in the appeal court, but now if the PSA is going to challenge it in the Privy Council, which don't expect him to win, but it is technically his rights to do it, so it is what it is, right? It's delaying probably the inevitable. So I don't know if it's been fully implemented yet. Sometimes when a government makes changes like this, you don't actually solve the problem, you just kind of, shift it around. So that's what I'm waiting to see. If they kind of just...
I don't think that's
hopefully not, but you have to... I think a lot of
I guess I am not a good person to ask that question because I'm too intimately associated with it.
With forming your Revenue Authority.
And not only the reasons, and a lot of the reasons had to do with a lot of the underground activities, because remember, the Ministry of Finances, I think it must be the largest ministry, it's made up of Board of Inland Revenue and Customs.
Yes.
And I can assure you that there were a lot of issues that the Revenue Authority, it's not how we had anticipated it, but because it needed a 3/5 majority, it has been watered down significantly. It is not what it would have been had we stayed in office, because we would have had a 3/5 majority to really have a very robust Revenue Authority. So that's a whole other discussion for another day.
I just want to say, the thing with implementation, it's not the systems, but rather we have seen where the systems have been undermined by individuals, or at least there's the accusations of it.
That's one of the things.
So that's the thing, right? Because I do believe that we have pre-existing systems that are not that bad. It's just that we don't hold people to account. So because of that, so that's the thing. We could have the Revenue Authority, and it could be.
I will say, because now it's coming all back to me. What I will say is that when we had a 3/5 majority, which is why the Prime Minister was pushing me hard to implement certain legislation, because of that. That was one of the pieces of legislation, and it is far more robust than what we have now, because it does not require that 3/5 majority, and much of what it was intended to achieve would not be achieved. That is the criticism I will make of it.
Right.
I will make that criticism of it.
I mean,
that's very unfortunate.
I have to ask though, is it worth it to do these things? Can it be fixed later on if a government has a 3/5?
Yeah, if you get the 3/5, you could do it. We can't go into, this discussion is not about the Revenue Authority, with which I was, as I said, very closely associated. And the reasoning behind what we were doing, there's just a lot more that we could talk about, and I'm just unhappy, I will say, that it had to reach the point that it had to be diluted so much, so that so much of its robustness and its effectiveness has been impacted.
Now, I think a while back we lost a caller from Digger Martin. He called in and then he dropped before we could put him on air. Please feel free to call back, but we do have, I think it's Maracas St. Joseph on the line. Morning. Morning, caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hi, you're on the air, caller. Go ahead.
I just want to know, since Trinidad and Tobago has so many squatters living, do they get living on the land and have houses on the land? Do they get to pay property taxes? Just a question.
So sorry, when you said so many squatters?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the law says, when they talk about, it says occupier.
Yeah.
So I think an occupier does not necessarily have to be an owner. They give a definition of persons who would be liable for the payment of the tax. So if it is an occupier who is there illegally squatting, as you might want to say, or it may be an attorney. When I say attorney, not attorney at law, but someone who has the power of attorney. So if you look at the legislation, it gives you a definition of who would qualify for the having to pay the taxes.
Caller, you have another question?
No, that's all I want to know, because they never paid so much taxes before, and all of a sudden they're going to start charging property taxes, which is okay. But there are a lot of squatters.
Yeah.
You know, so that's all I wanted to know.
Yeah.
They are going to be charged something, or tax-free or something like that.
It's funny that way where, you know, with squatting, they're not exempt, I believe, from any sort of financial responsibilities that they might incur from occupying the land. At least from what I understand, although it doesn't seem to make sense, because if they're squatting...
Why does it make sense?
Well, if they're squatting, they shouldn't be there in the first place?
No, I'm not talking about that. What's the purpose of the property tax? To clean the verges, get rid of...
I understand from that angle, yes.
You cannot have the benefit of all of that and not pay the tax.
I understand that point, but anyway, before we have Shagonas on the line, I think. Caller, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Morning.
I heard you talking about this revenue authority.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot understand the need for a revenue authority. We had a board of inland revenue which operated quite efficiently.
It did.
In which the majority of taxes were collected and action taken against the people. The problem with revenue is nobody attempts to collect the revenue.
Yeah. So one would...
And when people... And making a revenue authority do not solve it. Because if you look at the worst performing government agencies, them who they call authority, like the National Housing Authority, who given themselves the houses and all those sort of things. So I would like to know what was the reason for changing a system that's supposed to work. Of course, it calls for oversight. Because if for some reason the Revenue Authority stopped doing their work, because a long time, every year you would see a list of all the outstanding people who have not paid, right? And then action would be taken. I haven't seen this for donkey years, right? I'm not talking about things like telephone, right? Long ago, because they don't send out bills again. I don't know if you know when last you get that telephone bill. So I make a mistake and we pay 2 days late and they cut off my phone, right? Long ago, when they see your phone late, they would leave a message on your phone. Please pay so and so, or they would cut it off. These are the reasons for the problem here. We have some politicians who sit down there changing law like they want to do with property tax, right? And they're ashamed to sit down and publish the report on which it's based, because the report they had tell them to give the land and building taxes to the regional authority. Instead, they went and take away the city and borough, and no explanation has been given to that. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Again, it's unfortunate I am here as the person who is really pushing because I didn't start it, it had started before under the former minister in the ministry, I think Conrad Neal. But I certainly had reached the point of having the legislation. And one of the things which I, you know, they did their work. We had consultants. We got the information.
But
there
where
was clearly
$5 billion. Why are they hiding it?
There's
because the one way sit down and say to give the regional authorities that you could go and buy a copy of that report in the...
Well, I'm talking about the Revenue Authority. The problem with the Revenue Authority is this, that the unit, which was supposed to have been the unit where the level of control, where it was almost like, if you're a member of, you know, former sort, You had to do lie detector, you had to do this, you had to do that to be able to be part of that unit. It does not fall under the auspices of the Revenue Authority. It falls under the public service. So therefore, any kinds of acts, that was the problem. You had persons working there that you knew or believed were involved in illegal or unlawful activity, but because of the public service rules and regulations, we know we have security of tenure.
Which public service rule stop you from doing your work? None.
Yeah, but it's not stop you from doing work. Karen is pointing out it's those who don't want to do their work.
Or who are doing their work.
Or who are doing their legal work.
Want to do their work. Everybody have a supervisor. And the minister,
if you want to live in La La Land, I can't stop you from living in La La Land.
I appreciate.
A public servant.
No, but caller,
the reason we didn't get things done is because the politicians interfere and stop you from doing your work.
Okay, if you want to say that, if you're free to say what you want to say.
Caller, the thing is, I understand what you're saying. The caller usually calls in and he understands how the public service is supposed to work. But I do believe it's fair criticism to say it's not just political interference, which there is. We don't doubt, right? But part of it too, caller, is the fact that not all public service servants operate in good faith. That's just the be all and end all.
We did the research, Mr. You may be a very good public servant. You cannot speak for the thousands of persons who worked in Board of Inland Revenue or Customs. And I found the provision that weakened the Revenue Authority is the Enforcement Division. That was the key provision, you know. Yeah. And that is the one that we wanted to have that power over. And we wanted to choose the persons who would qualify to be in the Enforcement Division. That is the only division in the Revenue Authority that they have to go to the Public Service Commission. Everybody else in discipline, transfer, whatever, it comes under the authority. But the only one, the key one, which is enforcement provision, is under the Public Service Commission. And that is where the problem lies. Anyway,
to some extent, I don't think politicians have the capacity to fire certain public servants.
No, they do not.
Or have the capacity to discipline directly certain public servants, certain senior public officials, or even junior ones.
Any public servant can be disciplined.
By who? Not by the politicians.
You know, a lot of people stay in the public service because of security of tenure.
Yeah, I understand that. What I'm saying is, part of that procedure is dependent on part by other public servants, and at the end of the day, we can no longer say that the system is completely operating in good faith. It is not reasonable to make that assumption in 2024.
It's because our useless prime ministers for the last 20 years.
Well, yes, they have had an effect on it, right? But to some extent, other members in the public service would have had to also been part of the problem. The politicians themselves cannot be responsible for all of it. They might have been the genesis, the start, the catalyst.
Have done nothing.
I know that, yes.
15 points and not done. Look, this morning somebody talking about the Shagwanas market. What did I tell you? The bylaws for the Shagwanas market say it must be displayed in a conspicuous place in the market. You go in the market and look for it. Right? And if you do it, you go up in the laws of Trinidad and Tobago. One of the first things they tell you is that you must keep the entrances and exits of the market clear. And that is the first place every block up every day. And that's what the police moved them for us.
Yeah.
What the police used to do long time, they had a heavy fine. Now the fine is the same thing today, but today that is heavy.
Yeah.
And they used to keep it in the police station. And if 5 o'clock reach and you come for it, they auction it. I used to go and get plenty cheap stuff.
Okay. Well, Caller, thank you. I mean, therein lies the point. Unfortunately, people don't always want to cooperate with the law.
They don't want to because there's no enforcement of the law.
Well, that's true. That's what started.
We did a show, which I probably could do, is on domestic violence and that judgment of Justice Mohammed, where they said that the police held the police responsible for failure, and that's the executive, for failing to respond to the woman who lost her life. Her mother brought the action on behalf of her daughter's estate and her son, that she made so many reports to the police and yet they failed to act. So it's not a question of the laws are not there. We have a very robust Domestic Violence Act, just as an example. But we all agreed, the guests who are all highly respected, agreed it's all about implementation. And that goes across the board with every piece of legislation. It's the implementation.
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate the professor's point, Nicola from Chagonas, the lack of holding people accountable. It does start, at least to some degree, from the top. And if the politicians aren't doing their job, and if it doesn't go down the line, then this is the result. I said that about national security, whether it's the Coast Guard and to some extent the police. And it's not unreasonable to assume that it's more widespread. It's not just with the Ministry of Mass Security, but other areas of the public sector, because we see some examples of politicians not really doing much. And then, of course, you leave people to their own devices, not saying that they're all going to be wrong. We are propped up by the hard work of those who are dedicated to doing the job the right way and to ensure that the public gets the service that it requires. Unfortunately, that's basically what I say, not just about the police, but also about the public service in general. It's not as though...
You know what they call our society now? An envelope society.
And Karen, I'll close with this. You've brought this up. Well, Senior Superintendent Alexander, he also warned that if we don't get a handle on the gang situation, do not think that Haiti is an example that we cannot see some form of it here. He has more or less brought up that as an example of the consequences of our inaction as well. So you're not alone with that thought. It's not as extreme as we would think to say that it's impossible. If we want to put our heads in the sands and ignore the problems because we don't want to take it on, it's too stressful, leave it for others to fix. I don't know. That's not what democracy is about, right? Self-determination bears a responsibility all of its own. But with that said, thanks to all of our callers for the spirited discussions. Thank you to the good lady for joining me. Of course, make today a good day and this long weekend a great long weekend, as my co-host would say if he was here. Remember your allegiance to the Republic. We will see you next week. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
WESN.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The home of Caribbean content is growing and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
just one day after they moved into the heart of the Palestinian city. Israel has characterised its intervention into Rafah as limited. Palestinians, though, reporting intense bombardments and heavy fighting.
Members of the Palestinian Civil Defence seen here trying to rescue a wounded man in Rafah as Israel continues its air and ground assault on the southern Gaza city in defiance of an International Court of Justice order. The US said Tuesday that it was not planning any policy changes after an Israeli strike on the displaced people's camp Sunday caused outrage across the world.
Can you explain how the strike in Rafah does not cross the lines that the president has set?
We still don't believe that a major ground operation in Rafah is warranted. We still don't want to see the Israelis, as we say, smash into Rafah with large units over large pieces of territory. And we haven't seen that at this point. But we're going to be watching this, of course, very, very closely.
The US also said it would be removing and repairing the temporary pier used to bring aid into Gaza, which has been damaged in rough seas, exacerbating the lack of food, water and other essentials, with the Rafah crossing still closed after Israel took over the Palestinian side of it in early May. Israeli forces also advanced deeper into Jabalia in northern Gaza and carried out fresh strikes in Khan Yunis, making clear that there was nowhere safe in Gaza.
The rockets fell directly on us. I was hurled 3 meters and he fell next to me. I don't know how I managed to get up.
I lost 2 of my children. Haydar was 8 years old and Mecca was 5 years old. Mecca was my only daughter. May she rest in peace.
As Gaza's death toll tops 36,000 people, Israel's military says at least 290 of its soldiers have been killed since it began ground operations in October. The Israeli National Security Advisor said he was expecting fighting to continue for the rest of 2024.
Now today, Spain's Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, is meeting the Palestinian Authority Prime Minister, Mohammed Mustafa, a day after Madrid, along with Ireland and Norway, recognised the state of Palestine. The move has been welcomed by some Palestinians, but slammed by Israel, quote, as a reward for Hamas. Well, to discuss, I'm delighted now to welcome live to the programme the Foreign Minister of Spain, José Manuel Álvarez. Welcome to you, sir. Thank you very much for finding the time for us.
Oh, thank you.
First of all, just tell us simply why recognise a Palestinian state now?
Because we have to protect the two-state solution, and to recognize the state of Palestine is the best way to do it. We all know that the formula to bring definitive peace, both for Israelis and for Palestinians, for the whole Middle East, is two-state, the state of Palestine and the state of Israel, that live together in good neighborhood and guarantee each other security. This is the right time to do it. And also because of justice for the Palestinian people. They cannot be condemned to be eternally a people of refugees. And when we see 1,200 Israelis killed on October the 7th, more than 35,000 Palestinians killed in the beginning of the war, it's also a matter of pure humanity.
And there are Palestinians who've welcomed what you've done, but it is a symbolic move, isn't it? How can recognition make a tangible difference for Palestinians right now, if I may, given the destruction we're seeing in Gaza that has meant, I mean, effectively the entire enclave is unlivable. We have ongoing settlement expansion in the West Bank. A Palestinian state